All right, welcome commissioners. Welcome Administrator Angie, County Counsel Tom Carr, Diane Taniguchi Dennis. So Madam Chair, it's over to you.
Great. I'll gavel us in with the wrap of my knuckles to the Thursday, September 1st, 2022 Washington County Board of Commissioners Roundtable. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and today we are starting our back to in-person Board of Commissioner meetings. So here in our work session room, there's myself, Commissioner Pam Treese, Vice Chair Jerry Willey, Commissioner Nafisa Fai, and Commissioner Roy Rogers. This is our first fully hybrid meeting instead of being fully virtual. So welcome everyone, and I'd like to turn it over to our board clerk, Kevin Moss, as well as our information technology specialist guru du jour, running all of our tech today, Chuck Schabel. Did I pronounce your last name right? Schabel, Chuck Schabel. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. It's great to be here to start this hybrid meeting in here. So as you can see, as we're utilizing the work session room for you and the public, that we are streaming this on our YouTube channel and in our iAgenda portal. And just a few things about the room here. So we have a 2-camera setup. We have 1 camera on the board. And then if there's speakers, we can switch to them. And the PowerPoint, we have the screens around the room and the public can see exactly what we're seeing on the screen now. And so just to let the public know, I think we are the only jurisdiction to be utilizing our YouTube channel, our iAgenda portal, and in person and on Zoom. So we are going out on this meeting in 4 different mediums for all the public to attend and participate.
Great job.
That's why, so I give all thanks to Chuck and our IT team who are fabulous in helping me to get this ready for you. So that's all we have for today. So back to you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you. To commissioners and our leadership team, do you have any questions about our setup? The little green light lets us know that the mics are hot, so picking up everything. So if you need to sneeze, feel free to turn it off.
They don't turn off.
As long as you hold it down, it's muted.
Oh.
Or you can just tell me to mute and I'll mute them all.
Just holding it downward. Thank you, Chuck. Commissioner Treese, did you have a question?
It was about muting.
There we go. Terrific.
I can make it so that you have to press it on and off like doing the other for you. But here, I think it might squeeze a lot of us. So you guys.
Well, if you see me moving aside to sneeze, you might want to take that as a signal, but it doesn't happen that often. So, all righty. Well, today our key topic is to really get much more familiar with our county counsel office. But before we do that, we will go over some of our normal housekeeping items for today's roundtable. So in our packet, we have the latest edition of the rolling agenda as updated just yesterday afternoon. And I want to point out that once we return from the Labor Day weekend, it's, as usual, a mad rush to the end of the year. And coming up in the months of November and December, we don't have very many days of full board meetings. In November, we only have 3 Board of Commissioner days versus 4, partially impacted by both the AOC annual conference, the holiday week right now of Thanksgiving. We are slated to, I can't remember since yesterday, I think we are slated to not have a meeting. Then in the month of December, we have just 2 meetings. Also in the month of December, we need to make sure to complete the performance review of our 2 Washington County direct reports to the board as well. So, and let's see, then in our packet for our meeting next week, we will have some memos to discuss at our meeting next Tuesday, one from myself, one from Commissioner Willie, with regard to feedback to the Board of Forestry on their work with the Habitat Conservation Plan. And then some other informational updates that I wanted to make sure to share. As you know, with this being, well, yesterday being the last day of August, we have completed the filing timeframe for the November elections. And there are a few money measures that I know I have just caught up on. PCC will have a bond measure to continue their tax rate to fund various building and equipment expansions. That's measure 26-224. Metro will have the renewal of their Parks and Nature levy. That's measure 26-225. And then from the school standpoint, I don't know that I have all of them set yet. Our elections page probably has all of this. The Beaverton School District has a teacher's levy, and I also believe that the Forest Grove School District has a money measure as well. And then, as usual, various cities have their mayors and city council races. Do you know if there are any other money measures from either local jurisdictions or school districts that I might not be aware of yet?
Those are the only ones I'm aware of.
Okay. All righty. Are there any other updates that commissioners want to bring up now? We also have our update section on Tuesday. Okay, great. Well, terrific. We can get rocking and rolling. It's really nice to have folks in the room together with us and just to be together with one another.
And more importantly, this is my first time actually sitting here in a work session. And I've been doing this for a year and 8 months. So first time for everything, I guess.
Well, we tried to ensure that we still had a setup so that we were having conversation with one another.
Yeah, no, good job, Kevin and Chuck. This has been a long process to set up, and I was able to tour the dais and saw that will also Tuesday will be my first time sitting. So a lot of firsts for me still, even though it's been almost 2 years.
The chair mentioned to me that this was the first time since 2020.
February of
Here.
2020, yeah.
So how many in this room have not been in this room for a work session previously?
I'm not alone.
Amazing. It's amazing.
They got us outnumbered.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. All righty, well, without further ado, let's turn it over to Tom Carr.
And we have a presentation. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Harrington. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. This has been such a thrill to sort of put together a presentation to introduce you to our office. And the way we've set this up is everybody's here except for 2 people for good reason. And I've asked them each to come up one at a time to talk about themselves a little bit, and I'll introduce each one of them. I want to do a couple little preliminary things, though. This is our mission statement, and it was drafted in 2016, and it's a typical mission statement. The underlined language at the bottom, we're going to discuss at our upcoming retreat. I've proposed adding that. And the importance for me of the environment and the work-life balance for attorneys and legal staff is incredibly high, especially coming out of the transition that we're in. Lawyers have among the highest rate of alcohol and drug addiction. The suicide rate among lawyers is 6 times the national average. So lawyers do a lot of bad things to themselves. Creating an environment here where it is supportive, where we support work-life balance. I mean, as I've said to you before, my job isn't making folks work, it's stopping them. They'll work all the time if I don't stop them. I've got some prime examples in this room of people who will do that. And it's great for the county, not so good for their health. And so I mean, it may seem like that, but that is crucial to my philosophy of how this office should run and how we create productive attorneys. Because frankly, someone who's drug addicted or alcohol addicted or thinking about suicide is probably not a very productive lawyer either. So and if you read the bar news or the disciplinary procedures, often the discipline where people are not doing their job for their clients results from those sort of things, from deep depression. And as you all know, the trauma that the world just went through over the last 2 years affects everybody. And it also affects our team. And people hide it well and they do a good job. But that is really important to me. And as I said, we're going to discuss that at our upcoming retreat. A lot of the things we'll talk about in our retreat this year. We haven't had a retreat in several years, and it's time for us to talk about how we manage the office. So these are the authority that we operate under. The top one is just the state law that says you can appoint a county counsel. If you don't appoint a county counsel, the district attorney has to do the job. And the other ones are R&Os adopted over the years that authorize the county counsel to do various things. So I wanted to introduce you to our team. We'll start with Brad and Courtney, who have recently been appointed as deputy county counsels. The prior structure of the office was there was a county counsel and everybody else. The county counsel did all of the management, and sometimes not much management at all. And and as you all know, in the last 2 years ago, the county counsel decided to retire, and 3 other people with senior, total 4 of them over 120, maybe 150 years of legal experience, decided to leave all about the same time. And that was devastating to the office. And so one of the challenges that we all faced was, how do we rebuild an office that's lost its leadership and has lost some of its most experienced people? And so we've had to integrate 5 new attorneys into a staff of 10 attorneys. So we're at 10 and a half. So we have a lot of new people. A lot of people will tell you they've been here less than 2 years. And integrating that in has been a challenge. And the thing that I wanted to avoid in the future was having that loss in leadership. So I asked the board and the county administrator to convert 2 of our senior assistant county counsel positions into deputy county counsel positions, so that we could have other people involved in the management of the office, other leaders who, if something happened to me or I decided to retire, which isn't happening anytime soon, then there'd be trained leadership. And so you were kind enough to approve that. Brad and Courtney were kind enough to seek out the positions and were appointed. So they are the deputy county counsels who are helping me manage the office. They will be supervising individuals in the office so that, again, there's a structure in place that for most of the people, if I were to leave, there would be a transition. There would be a succession plan. So Brad, as you all know, you've all met Brad. I asked them each to do a slide on themselves. I did not edit the slides very much, so they're not all the same. They don't provide the same information. But basically, I want you to know what they did. Brad as you all know, is amazing. He basically carried the office through the transition period and supported me as I came in a remarkable way. He's also a nationally recognized expert on healthcare law, which during a pandemic, having one of those on staff has been crucial. He also, I'll let him talk a little bit about what he does, but his work with the juvenile department and HHS is really so important to the county. It's hard to believe. So Brad, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm a little concerned that we have tissues here for us, but nobody else. Are you gonna cry or something?
Tears of joy.
Oh, okay. Greetings. You all know me. I've been with the county for 16 years. This is my current portfolio of health and human services, juvenile department, community corrections, and then a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff I do. I was remiss in including the law library, and Lee's going to probably be upset with me and talk to me about this afterwards, but I also represent the law library. Pretty easy client, though. Prior to working for Washington County, I worked for 7.5 years for Lynn County down in Albany, and I did pretty much all the different tasks that a county counsel office does because we only had 3 attorneys. And then prior to that, for 3 years, I worked for Baker County as a new attorney, and I did a little bit of everything there. So that's kind of my background. And like I said, I spent an extraordinary amount of time on Health and Human Services, which is a big department for your county. And it does a lot of different things. So that's me.
Could I ask, Tom, do we have the opportunity to ask individuals questions along the way or?
Yeah, yes. Just don't force them to use the tissues.
I could benefit from your handing me one, though. I didn't bring any extra Kleenex today. What do you find the most interesting or what draws you to doing this work for county government?
I love working for county government in that it's not all about the money all the time as it is often in private practice. And for the most part, my clients are just trying to do the right thing. And that's a very fulfilling area to work in, as well as, you know, they are doing the right thing. So that's what I really enjoy about working for county services.
And when I never wanted to be a lawyer when in my younger years. And so I think it's fascinating to me to hear what draws people to the legal field, but then the public sector aspect of the legal field as well. So thank you for sharing that with me, with us today. And anything more you want to say?
I think I'm good. We got a lot of people to talk today.
Okay.
Sorry, next is Courtney Duke-Dreesen, who's also a deputy county counsel. Courtney is amazing. You see her constant updates in the hot sheet. She does a lot of the land use, the transportation part of the LUT, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. She's also a leader in the office. When we want to go out for drinks, Courtney organizes it. Courtney's always like, yeah. But I mean,
That's an expertise.
and that's the social aspect of it is so challenging coming out of a pandemic, and so we haven't been able to do that. And I will tell you, we were at the market on Tuesday. There was a Quinceañera fashion show, and watching Courtney and Adriana's daughters watching that was really special. Just having them sit together and bond and being able to just enjoy a beer with all these guys was terrific. So Courtney, go ahead.
Slide.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. I was going to start with telling you a little bit about myself besides what I do here at the county. I'm an Oregon native, born and raised in a small agricultural southern town called Lakeview in Lake County. I first moved to the metro area 22 years ago, and I've been here since, except for the 3 years when I traveled to Indiana to attend law school at Valparaiso University, Valparaiso University School of Law. It's been a minute since I've been there. When I returned to the Portland area, I started my legal career in a small private firm in Northeast Portland, where I represented farmers and ranchers and irrigation districts, special districts in water disputes and before the Oregon Water Resources Department. I was fortunate enough to join the county team 9 years ago, and I've been a Washington County resident for the last 17 years. So as Tom mentioned, when I first started at the county, my primary responsibilities were for the T side of land use and transportation. So basically anything that touches the roads, building the roads, maintaining the roads, public facilities on the roads, acquiring right of way, I assist with. I also have been fortunate to represent facilities and park services, which is basically everything that touches county-owned property, whether we own it or lease it, parks property, timber property, surplus property, and foreclosures, big group of property that we have to deal with. Also, for my whole time, I've been in charge of fleet services and mail and print services, which we formerly called central services. Those are the little divisions that just do and support and become the backbone of all of our divisions. More recently, I've assumed primary responsibility for procurement, which I think was a really natural fit because I worked closely with that division representing LUT and facilities, and actually all of them that do a lot of public contracting. And was very fortunate to be assigned Fair and Fair Board in Westside Commons because this is a new area for me. So it's definitely broadening my legal experience, and such a competent staff out there. They probably teach me more than I assist them, but it's been really fun to start taking that on. Also, I feel extremely fortunate to get to work with our dedicated and talented staff who are dealing with response to our in-house community and have been involved with the homeless encampment management program since its inception. It's been really challenging but rewarding work. And then finally, I have been representing our newly formed economic development team. And I think this work kind of sprung out of some of the work I had the opportunity to do in economic recovery and response during the COVID-19 pandemic under the CARES Act and now under ARPA. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to address your former question, but if there's any other questions, or I can pass it on to my distinguished colleague, Rob.
Where's Lakeview again?
Way down at the border.
You know I have a connection.
I know, it's near and dear to Minnie's hearts. Nice little town.
Or it's your wife that's from,
And Courtney spent a bit of time talking about that.
Yeah. My dad was also born and raised there, so
Were you the recipient of what's the guy down there has all the?
Daly, Dr. Daly.
Did you get one of his scholarships?
I
Did not?
I did not, because I didn't go to a state school. I went to Concordia University in Portland, and you had to go to a state school, but there was a separate Collins McDonald that was the same thing, but different fund.
Small world.
So it sounds like you worked in the private sector, but doing, supporting some public sector involvement with the water side. What do you enjoy the most about being, working with county government, or what would you say to aspiring lawyers who might be looking at this sector?
You know, I have a very strong response to this question. I've actually been asked it on interview panels, you know, why work for Washington County? And for me, I really, really enjoy the civic side of making a community that works, the community that people want to live in, want to work in, want to drive their kids to school in. I mean, I know it kind of sounds like I'm making that up, but it's really true. I really enjoy that part of it. And then I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention we're treated fair here. You know, back to Tom's work-life balance. I started a family after I started here. I don't know that I would have done that if I stayed in private practice. Demands were just different. And for me, I don't know that my family would have made that choice. So, you know, we're treated fairly and paid a living wage and given incredible benefits. So it makes a meaningful work-life balance possible.
That's great. Thank you.
Courtney, if I could just say thank you. I know that you've heard this from Pam and I many times, but during the first part of the pandemic, when we had the money and we handed it out to worked with all the cities and everything else, Courtney was the one responsible for making sure all the IGAs crossed all the T's, dotted the I's.
CARES funding.
That's right. And worked really, really hard, Courtney. You not only did you do all of that, but you did it in a very timely and quick fashion because everybody was wanting the check. And so thank you for that really hard work that you did then.
Oh, my pleasure. I've thought about it a lot. It was such a stressful time personally and professionally, but like now it was like so rewarding because we really were just being collaborative and everybody was working that hard. It wasn't just me. Everybody was rising to the moment. It was really rewarding, especially in retrospect.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Rob Rovette, who I'm sure you all know, is next up. Rob joined us relatively recently. And one of the great things about Rob is that he is so happy to be here. After years of working with AOC and those different challenges, he's a lawyer at heart and has thrown himself particularly into the land use stuff. And as someone who loves practicing law, to watch someone come in and just be, yes, I get to do this, I get to have fun, is really rewarding. So Rob, go ahead.
Thanks, Tom, and good morning, commissioners. Happy to be here, delighted to be here, as Tom mentioned. Maybe I could start actually with answering the question that you posed, Madam Chair, because what motivates me is exactly what you heard from Brad and Courtney, plus one additional thing, because I dedicated my career to public service. That's what I like doing for all the reasons that Brad and Courtney mentioned, but I'll just add this one additional thing for any young lawyers thinking about becoming a county counsel. And that's this. Why county counsel work super excites me is it's broad spectrum. There is something new every day. If you're a person that likes the same type of thing, consistency every day, county counsel work's probably not for you. If you are just excited to pick up a new statute and poke into something new every day, county counsel work this for you. And that's why it's so exciting to me. The other thing I'll just say, and I wasn't anticipating saying this, but I'll say it anyways. I want to thank Tom for exactly what he said at the beginning, which is this work-life balance. In my experience, lawyers, especially trial lawyers, people that go to court all the time like this guy, are workaholics. I've just seen them over and over and over again be workaholics. And that work-life balance is so important to young lawyers. And I only have 2 extracurriculars now. One of them is teaching law, and I try to instill that in young lawyers because I've seen way too many of them burn out, including myself. So last year, for a while, I was doing 5 jobs, had 5 clients, and 2 extracurriculars. Now I'm down to just 3 things instead of 12 things. So I'm actually making progress, believe it or not, on my own work-life balance because I'm not raising kids anymore. I've got a grandchild, and so I'm in a different phase of life where I could theoretically work myself to death, and I'm trying not to do that. So it's helping, and the whole attitude and approach that Tom brings to running our office helps as well, because he's right. It's about getting us to make sure we have a life outside of work. And it's a real challenge. So anyways, I'll stop talking about that. I've been a county lawyer for 30 years. With Lincoln County for 16 years in county council. There were only 2 of us, so I got to do a little bit of everything. So I think that's something I can add to our office, which is you can literally drop just about anything on me, and I have some level of experience with it. With AOC for 8 years, and now with Washington County, I do the LU part of LUT, the land use part. As you know, land use is a bit, shall we say, exciting right now. We have all kinds of challenges. If you haven't watched or listened to Jeff Mapes on OPB, he's doing a recent series on the history of our land use system, going back to 1973 and Senate Bill 100. Wonderfully done. Definitely worth listening to. He's only 2 sessions into it so far, but we do long range planning. You've seen lots of that recently with needed housing, middle housing. We'll have another middle housing ordinance coming to you probably in December of this year. We're working on 2 other ordinances. So those will all be coming to you later this year, early next year. It's all on your calendar. Current planning is stuff that you typically don't see as much. This is battles over subdivisions and individual planning issues. Transportation planning, you've seen 882 and 883 recently. That's the kind of thing. Planning Commission, Legal Counsel Planning Commission, which is probably going to start meeting again in person here pretty soon next door, which is very exciting. We've been remote for quite some time. And then I do lots of miscellaneous stuff here. So I do ITS, which is a lot of contracts. And if you want a challenging contract, look at some ITS contracts. Big IT companies, as you can imagine, tend to have one-sided contracts and tend not to want to negotiate with folks. We figure out what leverage we have and we do what we can. But we often have to agree to things that normally we don't really like. But that's the nature of ITS right now. STR, working on short-term rentals. I do SDL as well. I do a lot of miscellaneous things. I'm still on a variety of public safety work groups. One that's redesigning how we fund community corrections. Local choice, local option is my mantra. We're sticking with that. I'm also currently vice chair of the Criminal Justice Commission. I'm serving my 2nd term there, so I'll be termed out in another 3 years. That's important to us here in Washington County and statewide because CJC funds most of our diversion programs, such as drug court, HOPE, justice reinvestment. Much of my career has bounced in and around diversionary programs in the justice system to get people suffering from substance use disorder and behavioral health issues out of the criminal justice system. And I do a lot of that work at CJC. And then we've got miscellaneous things that Brad or Tom assigned to me, including some work groups. We're trying to update public meetings law right now. Talk about a challenge. We haven't really updated public meetings law in Oregon fundamentally since 1973. A few things have changed about technology since 1973. We did that recently with public records. I think we did a good job. We're tackling fees now, which is a whole other little sticky wicket. And then just other duties as assigned, things that just come up randomly. And I have some general broad-based experience in a variety of things, so I can be helpful here and there. So that's me talking way too long. Happy to answer any questions. My 2 extracurriculars, for what it's worth now, I do teach drug policy at Lewis and Clark Law School on Tuesday evenings, and I also continue to help out the county clerks with their nonprofit status and any legislation they need crafted. So I've been helping out statewide associations like that really since 92, county associated ones. But I'm only doing one now. I used to do 5. Just trying to keep myself sane.
Commissioners, any questions, comments?
I'd just like to, I've told both Tom and Rob this, but when in working on an issue in my district for LUT, the opposing attorney is somebody I know, and he mentioned to me how fortunate we are to have Rob with us and what a great job he is doing. So I want to make that statement public.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that though we've only had the opportunity to chat with 3 members of your team thus far, one of the things that comes across loud and clear is how the work of your department helps make everything else possible. I've had careers in both the private sector and the public sector. I was really fortunate in the private sector to work with all kinds of lawyers on contracts, patents, you name it, MOUs. And I really appreciated lawyers with business development, practicing the art of the possible, not just that I'm going to get you kind of aspect. And I really hear that here. Tom and I have chatted recently about the ITS contracts, and this is really starting to light a fire in me because here in our country, we take things for granted, the smoothness of life, time to market, things of that nature. And if these contracts, particularly on the ITS side, continue to get more and more arduous, that's a problem for the private sector. And so I think we're perhaps going to need to think about how we can participate and start making more noise to define some best practices to help reduce that burden so that we can increase effectiveness all across the working nature. But we'll see. Yes.
If I can just say, Chair Harrington, ITS will be glad to hear you have spoken those words.
Rob, I have one question for you. That coming in from the outside always brings a different perspective. And one of the things I was going to ask this to Tom later on anyway was that the county's system of tracking cases and having information on case law was a bit archaic. Your technology was not up to par. It was creating a lot of extra time for lawyers to research issues that are at a fingertip in most other avenues. In the private sector, I mean, that's the way it is. Have you noticed that? And have you have any best practices that you bring to us? Or is it pretty much like you saw at the AOC or maybe other places?
That's a great question, Commissioner. And I guess I should tell you my bias is against paper. My bias is in favor of
Against paper?
Against paper. I like electronic documents, filing systems that make sense so I can easily get to things. You may, even though I've been practicing law for 30 years and I grew up in a paper world, I really do appreciate what technology can do, although I'm not as good as younger folks at it, to be honest, to just be blunt. But when I was elected district attorney in Lincoln County, I actually converted a paper system to an electronic system, and efficiencies just grew amazing. Even the ones that weren't predicted, that there were just so many efficiencies. We converted to something called Carpel. Tom, our shop uses ProLaw, which is a tool that, just like any other software, it's got glitches and it's got challenges, but it makes things so much more efficient in terms of quickly catching up on what is in a matter, which is in a case. So we've used technology in our office, really, I think, to make our office function not only much better, but more efficiently so we can get more work done with less people, to be honest.
How many monitors do you have on your desk?
How many monsters?
Monitors.
Monitors.
Oh, see, I got plenty of monsters.
Rob, do you have any monsters on your list?
Well, I do, but we'll talk about that later, Tom. Private conversation, one off. Monitors, well, I got, well, three if I use them all, but I use two.
Is that the standard of three? For most,
Two are connected, but then I have a third one. It's
like a laptop, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
and I use them all, and I can't even. It's weird, Commissioner. I can't even imagine going back from that because it would reduce my efficiency.
That's pretty standard. I was just curious with the technology, but thank you. I still would like to hear from Tom more at some point about where you're at, because your time is valuable. And researching things countless hours is not really appropriate. I mean, you need to be able to have all that at the fingertip. And so I'm curious where he's at. But I know your colleague to your right, my left, he probably can answer that question very well.
Absolutely.
Because he's always litigating.
Well, Commissioner Rogers, your question, there's a variation on your theme, because if you tour down in the A&T floors, there are some folks who have monitors that are those large TV screens.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of how many monitors do you have, but how many windows, and the scale of the pixels that they're looking at is just incredible. So, yeah, knocked my socks off.
So next we have Jason Bush. Jason is basically the poster child for me trying to take work away from somebody. Jason loves his clients and his clients love him. When I started and met with all the directors, I heard from most of them, please don't change my lawyer, particularly Jason's clients. And then when I try to reduce his workload, I get pushback from, well, I like Jason doing that, but so one of the things that challenges we faced is because the county does so much work. We do probably as many condemnations as anybody in the state, including the state. And Jason was handling that all by himself for a long time. And he does most of it. And so I asked John and Eamon, who you meet, to take some of that workload. And Jason's recently asked me, well, can I get some more? And in fact, Jason is supposed to be on vacation in Hawaii today.
Oh,
And he is
no.
back. And I asked him not to come back, but he's come back for another reason. That's a good reason, not just to be here. But I'm so happy he's here because I'm a huge fan of Jason's, and he'll tell you a little bit about himself now.
Hey, good morning, Chair Harrington and the commissioners. I think in terms of answering that question about why we want to work here, why working for the county is such a great place to work. For me, I think, and this is probably true for most of the attorneys here, really it's because the quality of the clients that we work for is just top notch. I think for me personally, working for A&T is like the best client in the world because they have all the answers. They're the smartest people and they're dedicated to the work that they do. They're really passionate about it. And I know for some people that might be ironic or like, how could you be interested in so passionate about doing tax work? But I think that it's like ideal or great. So in terms of that, like my primary client is A&T assessment and taxation, and I do the whole shebang for that particular department. We have the second floor assessment department, which does any number of things. When I first started working for the county, Rich Hobernick, who was the former director of A&T, that we work off the tax calendar from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and the cycle that represents, and you'll get used to that. It'll take you a couple of years, and he really was right, understanding how things work in the tax cycles. We start with BOPTA, we start with appeals, and then we work our way through. Then after that, we have exemptions. Then we have the foreclosure list and fall, and it's a cycle that repeats over and over again. And so I think we really see that on both sides of the assessment and taxation, on the assessment side and getting values and closing the roll, that type of thing. And the appeals that come from that. And then on the tax side and the disputes we have over collections of that, over which things are going to write off, which ones are not going to write off. And then ultimately the foreclosure list and the properties that we have to take because the taxes are not paid and subsequently gets turned over to Courtney's group and facilities to put that in the county's inventory. So it's a wide department that handles a number of things, including some things that might not be that might not be traditionally associated with tax, such as elections. And obviously that runs on its own calendars, separate. Only recently taken over the elections in the last year and a half or so, but they've been a great client as well to work with. Obviously, it's a more trying time these days to work with elections than it probably has been in the past, but I know that those people really believe in the quality of the work that they're doing and the job that they're doing there too. And then I guess the final thing I would just mention is on the condemnation side. I had this grand idea that working that tax and condemnation should actually be combined. And the reason is because when we think about tax, a lot of the times we're thinking about traditional appraisal theory and taxation when we're valuing property, using the income approach, the cost approach, the sales approach to come to a value of what a property should be. And that's the same basic idea that holds in condemnation, theoretically, that we want to use the same ideas on the properties that we're paying for, or that we're doing a public taking for. Turns out that that idea is not 100% accurate, because there is a fundamental difference, a big fundamental difference between condemnation and tax, and that we fundamentally change the property in condemnation, so a lot of the assumptions that we do in tax don't actually apply. But I actually think it's been useful to do both because one, I can cross-pollinate, if you will, the ideas of condemnation to the tax guys and show them their appraisals there, which they weren't looking at before, and vice versa. So it gets a good combination of both, and it's just a really great place to work. And for both fields, it's just an excellent combination of both doing litigation related trials and tax and condemnation, as well as general counsel responsibilities for the contracts and tax, and just general random questions that you get in tax.
So with this being my first term as a county commissioner and chair, what is that one thing that I need to make sure that I understand for the difference between property assessment and values there versus condemnation?
So I think on assessment, obviously we run off measure 50 first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
So that's the question of whether something is even appealable or not. It almost comes down to what's your math going to be, so your maximum assessed value,
Yeah.
before you even get to the question of whether it's going to be appealed. And we don't have that at all in condemnation. Condemnation, we want to get out of the cases, frankly, as soon as possible, because the attorney fees are super high. And the deck is kind of, frankly, a little bit against government entities in that realm, which is not necessarily the case with tax, even though I know that there's dispute there.
So that one aspect you were getting at about the act of condemnation itself makes things different, is just trying to get that as much value as possible as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of differences too in terms of, well, like, we have tax court specifically with judges without juries, whereas in condemnation, we're across the street with a jury who might not understand necessarily everything that's going on in valuation. And I think people can be a little bit questioning about, when we're taking taking people's property on condemnation. So
Thank you for teaching me so quickly.
Jason, tell us something about you that isn't about work.
So I moved to Oregon back in 2011. I mean, I think some of you have heard the story before because my wife works for Intel. So I came out here. In terms of things not for work, I'm originally from the Midwest, so I'm a big college football fan, but I often go for those Big Ten universities as opposed to those Pac-12 ones.
Does that mean you're a UCLA or USC fan?
Maybe these
Will be.
Okay, so how many football pools are there in the county? Social football pools.
We take the fifth.
That would be called gambling. Is that what I hear, Tom?
Jason, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
So does that mean on Saturday, who are you rooting for?
no comment.
Oh, I don't know. We're gonna have to talk.
Who are
Courtney,
you
can
rooting
you
for?
set up a beer for this? The Ducks.
There you have it.
Except that's not a Big Ten team they're playing.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Could be.
That's why I asked.
Yeah,
I-
that's
I
right.
was
Easy
saying.
one for him. You should have said that. Two related questions. What is your internal billing rate per hour for your clients, meeting county? And then out of curiosity, those who you are frequently opposing, what's the billing rates of those attorneys hourly?
Oh, well, on the first question, I'm actually not sure what our internal billing
Yeah,
is. You
so-
think that was-
We don't bill hourly to our clients. We have a cost allocation process where we take our total workload for the client and then we allocate some of that cost through the general fund as part of the budget process. So it doesn't come down. And I think if we bill outside, it's like $135. So if we're trying to collect attorney fees, we don't do that very often, so I haven't looked, but it's not a lot. And I'm sure what Jason costs the county is far less than what he would cost if you had to hire him outside, if that's your question.
And
Well, it's doable, 'cause
yeah, I think it goes to the second
we-
part.
we- Yeah, we used to use an internal billing rate for departments so we could see what the usage was. But I think that you're probably dealing with 350 to 400 an hour on the opposing side. That's my guess.
Oh, it's on the condemnation side, it's well north of that. It can be between like 500 and 600,
An
I
hour
would say. Yeah. Like it's
Wow.
really high there.
went up.
Actually, we don't pay for attorney's fees, so it's a little bit different because they get a return on the percentage of whatever they collect, and it's over 5 years for an adjudication. But yeah, it's far less on an hourly basis if you think of it that way, at least on the condemnation side.
Is there any property disputes that have to do with other jurisdictions? Meaning cities or special services we're involved with? And do we bill them for our time?
So we do not, so on the condemnation side, I know that the ODOT, they will do their own condemnations within Washington County, and we're only tangentially involved with those, like maybe we'll write a release to get out of those. On the tax side, since we're the taxing district for everyone, you don't necessarily, if you're challenging an assessment for the county, even if it's in Beaverton or whatever, it'll still come through us. There are some exceptions to that because it can go, certain types of property categories for industrial properties will go directly to the Department of Revenue rather than us. But we basically handle the whole shebang on that side for disputes.
No additional, even for urban renewal agencies or anything?
So sounds like a good thing for one-on-one.
Yeah.
Yeah, urban, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different categories of that when you talk about enterprise zones, et cetera, like about who handles what, because a lot of those will come from you'll have to have a zone sponsor, for instance.
Oh, I'm
which would be
sorry
city.
to have to interrupt, but we've got some other members of the team we need to get to. So really applaud your interest, and I know that that you can, you're very well thought of from your experience and contribution here, Jason. So thank you very much.
So next is John Mansfield, who has recently joined our office. John is a very experienced litigator, and he's sort of somewhat like, I'm a litigator by heart. So I love the fact that in the county counsel's office, I get to work on some of the most interesting issues you can imagine as a litigator. Most lawyers would give their eye teeth to do a constitutional case once in their career. We do about one a year or one every 6 months. So we get to work on constitutional issues that are fascinating and interesting. John, this is his first experience in government law, so he can answer your question about the differences very well. Most of his career has been in private practice at big firms. So, and he really has thrown himself into the litigation part of this work. So John, go ahead.
Well, I must say, you probably can't tell since I have a mask on, but I have been grinning and smiling through this whole roundtable. Just getting to be physically in the room together and to get to know you and your expertise better, but especially for every team member who has joined us since February of 2020. I'll just leave it at that. Yay! So John, thank you.
Commissioner Harrington and Chair Harrington and the Commissioners Treese, Willie Fye, and Rogers, I'm really very honored to be in front of you. I've only been here a year. I've been doing this law thing for 28, 29 years, something like that. And Tom's right, I came here after private practice. My background, I'm from Medford, and my dad's, matter of fact, has been a government lawyer there for years. And so I'm kind of following in his footsteps. And went to law school in upstate New York, and then I clerked for a federal judge in Maine, and then I practiced in Washington, D.C., and in San Francisco in two very large law firms, and then also practiced for a while in Seattle, and then practiced on both in the Schwab law firm here in Portland, over there in Portland. And then I been here for a year. I'm probably the only one here whose undergraduate degree is music and not poli-sci. So that at a certain point in my life, I took a career fork, and I'm glad I did this, mainly because I don't have to lift amps anymore. So. But I'm a litigator. There's two types of lawyers. There's litigators and there's everybody else. Litigators are dilettantes. We don't have subject area expertise. We really do. We have, but I specialized in private practice in a particular type of litigation, intellectual property, patents, copyrights, and trademarks. So that was, but all of the experience that I have, like I say, when you're litigating a case, it's really about knowing how to litigate as opposed to knowing the subject areas. And especially when we have people like Rob and Jackie, who's going to be coming up, and Jason and people like that who really know the subject areas, we can rely on them. So I stand up in front of courts for the county. And the kinds of cases I do are anybody who wants to sue the county for a civil action. You know, I'm going to be standing up there and representing. Earlier this week, I stood up on a tobacco ordinance that's being challenged. I also had a condemnation case. And of course, it's not just standing up in court. There's an awful lot of preparation. In fact, about 10% of being a litigator is actually being in court, and the other 90% is writing. I do a tremendous amount of writing. And by the way, I have excellent support here. You'll meet her in a minute, but we really have several excellent support people. Having been in the private sector where there's lots of support, this is better than I've ever had in the private sector in terms of.
And that's in the form of paralegals.
Legal assistants, people who can help, because it's just not efficient for a lawyer to do certain things. And there's certain types of expertise that the paralegals develop that we don't have. And I rely on paralegals. They're not my paralegals. They're paralegals who work with me. I rely on those people to help me get our job done. And so that's really essential. Commissioner Rogers, you mentioned a little bit about having facts and cases and research at our fingertips. We have the very finest. I haven't been to a law library in 15 years. And on my desktop, I have every single case going back to the beginning of the Republic, and so it's instantly available to me. And then the same with the electronic. I'm an electronic file person too. The electronic files for lawyers are godsends. Otherwise, you die in paper. So, but yeah, I do torts, for instance. You have prisoner suits, prisoners who are upset about one thing or another. They have a lot of time to think about their grievances. Tobacco cases recently, I've done a couple of those, including one involving a challenge to a valid ordinance. Use of force, I've got one in particular major use of force case when there's again, these are private tort actions against the county. And that would include, of course, the Sheriff's Department. Jail, there's, again, prisoner suits, condemnation. Again, I do a lot of these condemnation cases, not as many as Jason, but we have so many of them that it's important to have lawyers. And I've learned how to do this by working with people like Jason here and, the other folks, the people in our right-of-way department, and so forth. So again, I'm on the dilettante side of the house, but I'd be happy if you have any questions or want to raise.
Commissioners, anything?
Anything that you would like to say is a best practice that you'd like to see implemented here? You brought from the private sector? We're not doing?
We're definitely definitely like I say, on the IT side, we're really right there. We're really, we're up to the same level. It's I don't know, it's hard to say the best practices. One of the best practices is that while we keep track of our hours and bill them, we don't, there's not this obsession with like, we all make our hours and then some. But when you're a private lawyer, every 6 minutes you bill somebody. And my billable rate, I left private practice was $490, and it would be probably in the 600s if I were in the same kind of practice, the firm, just because of seniority. But I appreciate the fact that while we keep track of things and we know what we do, there's not the constant billable hour pressure, because it means I can spend the time I need to on a case. I can spend all day research something. I can go visit. Recently visited a house where there'd been something horrible had happened, but a case against us, and able to do that. So works well.
Well, I want to thank you, John, but also to the full team and to Tom for joining us and doing this in a roundtable so that I can learn more, we can learn more, and that our community can learn more about what the practice of law in county government is. When I became a county commissioner, I did attend the AOC County College to learn more about what this job would entail. But if there was a session on what county law was all about, it wasn't very long. So just knowing that, well, yes, you're here to serve the public, but there will be some people unhappy about what you as a county government have done, and you'll need to handle that. You'll need to have a team of people to handle that. And you need to create policy and make sure that it's good policy and can be implemented. And your lawyers will help you to do that. There's a lot of work there. And then being an agency of over 2,000 people, right? A large organization involves a lot as well. So it's one reason why I really appreciate the information that you've each put into the slides about the work that you do, the expertise that you bring, and who you are as people and what you like to work on as well. So thank you for contributing not only to the county, but to the industry and for all that we do here.
Very happy to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the
Pleasure
next
to meet you in person after a year of hearing. John does this, Eamon does that, different, and reading, your first names in the hot sheet. So it's great.
So unfortunately, Eamon got called to court at 9 o'clock this morning. He's doing a civil commitment, and civil commitments are sort of work we don't talk about much, but it's about the most important thing we do. And Eamon does all of them now. That's when someone is a risk to themselves or others and needs a court order to get the mental health services that they need to become better. And so Eamon is over in court right now arguing one of those cases. He may come if he's done, but they can go for an hour, they can go for 2 hours, they can go for 3 hours, because the courts take them very seriously. And it used to be something that was rotated through, and basically whoever was in the office when it came in to do it, because they come in on like 40 hours, no issue. And we asked Eamon, and he jumped into it and has developed an expertise in doing these cases that is really impressive. John and I are his backups, and I haven't had to do any yet, and I'm terrified that I'm going to have to do it because I can never meet his standard.
Well,
So-
as you well know, I am better with faces than I am names.
Yes.
So I'm in trouble when it comes to Eamon. okay?
Well, hopefully
He's the
he will-
mystery man.
You will pop in a few minutes. So Adriana Ortega is here, and I said her name wrong because I can't roll my R's, but she can, so maybe she can say it correctly for you. Adriana has been a godsend for us. Adriana has taken over the human resources portfolio for us. Paul Hathaway handled for so many years and was one of the people we lost. Adriana has jumped in. She's got deep experience. She's got a unique portfolio in that she represents human resources, but then she represents every department in the county because with 2,000 employees, every department will have a problem from now and again. Although we have really good employees and we don't have that many issues, but there's going to be some. And Adriana handles it with a grace and a counseling approach that is really helpful to folks. She doesn't tell them, do this. She gives them the options and works it through with them. And we've had a lot of success with that. So, and also she's a lot of fun to have around. We love having Adriana on our team. So welcome, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for inviting us to be here. I'm one of those people that started October of last year, so in the middle of the pandemic, and didn't have a chance to meet a lot of people other than seeing faces maybe on Teams. So it's really nice to be here, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of you and look forward to continuing that work. First, a little bit about myself. I was born in Mexico and came to this country when I was 3. So I was naturalized in 1986. So I'm a dreamer even before that term was coined. I count my blessings that I was able to be naturalized in 1986 because I was, of course, I was in high school and I was facing that situation. Am I going to be able to go to college or am I not? And so obviously I was able to do that. I went to Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota, which coming from Los Angeles, which was a huge culture shock. The most memorable experience for me was when my eyelashes froze when I walked out of the building. So that was a good experience. But it was a great experience. It was a wonderful school, and I learned a lot. After that, I thought that I wanted to be an attorney. I really considered that, and it was actually because somebody came to speak to my middle school, and she was Hispanic, and she told us her story, and she told us that she was at UCLA Law, and that planted that little seed in my mind of, well, maybe if she could do it, maybe I could do it someday. So I think for all of us who have kind of reached that, that goal that we wanted, such as going to law school or becoming a doctor or becoming an attorney, I think we have that responsibility to communicate to others that, you can do it too. And so I worked in LA in the big entertainment law firms. That was very interesting. I talk about people doing cocaine at the Christmas party, true story.
Not ours. Though.
Not ours. No, this was in LA. So that was an interesting experience. I thereafter moved to Boston. A friend of mine was at Harvard. And so he said, come over here, and really evaluated, do I want to go to law school or not? I ultimately decided that I did. And so I went to Boston University. And that was also a really great experience, a very, very good school. And I was able to learn a lot. Again, a different culture on the East Coast, right, as compared to the Midwest and LA, where I had grown up. So I moved to Oregon from California. My then husband and I were commuting 45 minutes in each direction. 2-bedroom houses were $500,000 and above. So we thought, when is this going to happen for us? So we packed up my little Corolla and we moved up to Oregon, and we've been here ever since. I have 2 wonderful, beautiful children. My Guillermo was 11 years old and he's going to be starting middle school, and Estella is going to start kindergarten. So I'll be going to her school in the afternoon. So that's very exciting, I think. Definitely a new stage of life, right? I worked at the Bureau of Labor and Industries for a long time, 11 years. That's where most of my experience comes from. And I tell everybody I have seen everything imaginable in employment law under the sun. So nothing really scares me anymore. I think it's all, it's a problem, it's a challenge. And, we deal with it within the confines of the law, of course, and with an interest of doing the fairest thing, both for the employee as well as the employer. And so that's the perspective that I bring to Washington County. I've really enjoyed working with this wonderful, wonderful team, especially Tom. I think he provides great leadership in navigating this boat we call County Counsel, and just that work-life balance, but also just providing support when I have an issue, a personnel issue with the sheriff's office. I know that I can work with Kim to work through that. I will be contacting Jackie later on because we have a challenge in one of her clients that needs to be addressed. So I love working for the county, and I love being able to work the expertise and experience that I've gathered thus far. And also very happy to meet with you. I've had the pleasure of chatting with some of you. And again, just look forward to being here for a very long time.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Adriana. Commissioners, any other thoughts or questions? Great. What a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adriana. So Jacqueline Saito, who I'm sure most of you know because she's been with the council for many years.
She's kept me out of trouble. For sure, I know she's
I'm
kept
glad
me
to
out
hear.
of trouble, unlike the rest of you who have done it, and I just haven't been aware of it.
Well, Jacqueline, as you know, handled land use for a long time and the planning commission, and that's really challenging work. And when Rob came, we were able to transfer that to him, and she's thrown herself into housing services, which is, talk about the frying pan into the fire, because right now that's one of our biggest priorities is housing. And there's a lot of money, a lot of legal work that needs to be done. And Jacqueline has been amazing in the transition, and the team loves her. I mean, I get very positive feedback from all the work that she's doing, and it's hard work, and it's really important work, and we're really lucky to have Jacqueline here to do it. So Jacqueline, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Of course, and thank you, Tom, for the kind words. I appreciate it. Thank you. So good morning, Chair Harrington and commissioners. My name's Jacqueline, and I've been with the county for about 22 years. So that makes me the longest staying person in the county council's office. And one of the reasons I stay is because there's always something very interesting to do. I've been working with the housing department for a little less than a year, and I'm so excited to be doing federal work now because prior to working with the housing department, I was doing about a decade of time with land use. And then prior to that, I did about a decade of my main work was with civil commitments and also code enforcement. So I'm very pleased to be doing the work for housing because I feel like my career at the county has kind of come full circle. I've seen a lot of things. I've done tax appeals. I've done federal court cases and condemnation. So I feel that all of this experience with the county, particularly working with the civil commitments, has really augmented my perception and what I bring to bear for the supportive housing services that's rolling out right now. So I think that being able to do a bunch of different kinds of things is really exciting at the county council's office. And of course, we have a fantastic team. If you've heard, like everybody, not only do they bring their expertise in terms of their legal knowledge and their passion for doing a fantastic job, but they're individually amazing people, just amazing people. And I would actually say that goes out to the county as a whole, because over the 22 years, I've met a lot of people who work for this organization, and they are phenomenal. They work really hard, they're committed, and they're just good people. So it's fantastic to be with this organization for this long. I'll give you a little bit of background and then open it up for questions. I am a San Diego native. I have been in Oregon for 35 years, and I went to law school at Lewis and Clark. And prior to going to law school, I owned a business. And I owned a business for about 8 years. And I think that that's also something that I bring to the mix, is kind of understanding what, business owners face. Another thing that has really influenced my work is at the beginning of the pandemic, I was allowed to work at the Emergency Operations Center. and just helping folks just get that work done and to respond so that we could keep everybody safe was very satisfying to me. So, so I put up my slide so you can see what I have, and I'm sure everybody knows what I'm doing. So I'm just going to just open it up for questions if anybody has any.
What would you like an aspiring student, not even an aspiring lawyer necessarily, to know about the possibilities of becoming a lawyer and a public sector lawyer, even here at Washington County?
Sure. So for a student, it's very interesting because I have two daughters and they're both teenagers, and one is going to U of O and the other's a senior at Cleveland High School. And they've watched me work really, really hard. And I think that they, from the outside, can kind of peer in and see how dedicated folks who work in public service are to their calling. And so I would say that for a student, what would be important for a student right now is if you want to give back to your community, if you're that kind of a person that likes to give back to the community, it would be excellent to work for a local government agency. I would also say that in addition to that, we're on the cutting edge of all things related to civil rights, to equity and inclusion. We have a big focus on that. I know that not every place has that, but we do in Washington County. And I can speak for that because I'm on the Equity Leadership Council. So if that's important to people, which I think it is for the younger generations, the equity and inclusion piece, I think that is something that will resonate with them. And then as far as being a lawyer, you just further the organization's agenda to move in that direction. And it's a very satisfying, you don't always win, you don't always get what you want, but you're moving the ball forward. And that's the important part. So that's what I would say.
Well, would also like to add, Mr. Carr, Tom, as one observation thus far in getting to meet your team face to face and to hear from them, is it reminds me just this week, just a couple of days ago, we had a affordable housing fund groundbreaking, and then the opening of the Valfrey at Avenida 26. And your team does a lot of work to help make not only those things happen on the ground in our community, but a lot of other things. And I don't know that we're doing the best job as a team that we should to invite your team members to those on the ground present openings and whatnot. So Ms. Angie, I would ask if you could help us ensure that there's at least that invitation so that you can see the results. I mean, it's everything. It's from the proclamations, the events we have, and you just wait, one of my and one of our favorite projects coming up, mega projects with the county's new community strategic plan, the development of that and what the county is and how we service our community. You get to play a role in that too. We need you to play a role in that because you do each and every day already.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Harrington, for that invitation. Appreciate it.
And so we'll move to Kim Stewart. As you probably all do know Kim, she's been here for a little bit of a while as well. When I started, Kim was handling all litigation by herself. She was in charge, and without way too much work for one human being. Kim is an excellent writer and was actually getting really great results. And one of the challenges that we faced was Elmer Dickens, who you probably know, who'd represented the sheriff's area since Noah's time, I think, was retiring. And the sheriff's department was very concerned about losing that level of expertise. And Kim agreed to step in, and Elmer has stayed part-time. So we've got the two of them and has just done an amazing job throwing herself into that really important work. Sometimes I think they're going to just make her a deputy at some point. She's part of their leadership team. She goes to the command staff meetings. She's not actually part of their management, but she sits in on the meetings and they consult her all the time. And so I've done this a long time. getting accepted in the law enforcement community is challenging. You have to build trust and you have to be there. And Kim, the highest honor I can say is that Kim has managed to do that in a short time. That's in a really impressive way. I also wanted to mention that we joke, Kim knows everybody in the state. I mean, every time we have a lawyer, Kim was like, oh yeah, I know that guy, or I went to law school with him, right? I mean, and because she's very active in the community. And one of the things recently, she was part of a group that was honored by the National Women's Lawyers Association for the work that she's done for lawyers with parents, particularly in the diversity area. And she could talk a little bit about that. But I'm just incredibly impressed with Kim and the work that she does. And we're really lucky to have her. And now that I've completely embarrassed her, she can talk a little bit about herself.
Oh, this is culturally very embarrassing. I don't like talking about myself, but thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. It's good to see you again. I know most of you, although Commissioner Fry, I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better. As you know, by way of background, I've been at the county for about 6 years. I was your litigator, one of your litigators before I transitioned to General Counsel. And I guess I put a little smattering of the things that I do up there, but I really just want to quickly address, Chair Harrington's question, why work here for Washington County? And so I don't live in Washington County. I actually live in Multnomah County. And I will continue to live there because I can't afford to move anywhere else after we would sell our house. But I guess number one, the work that I do for Washington County, even though I don't live in the county, is incredibly important to me because no matter where I go, so originally I am not an Oregonian, I'm from Hawaii. And so to me, I've worked in all three branches of government. I worked at the Hawaii State Legislature before I went to law school at Penn. And I also worked temporarily at the DOJ while I was in law school. And then I clerked at Multnomah County in trial court for Judge Daley, most recently retired, and then for at the Court of Appeals for Judge Wolheim, also passed, and for Judge Circum, now retired. But public service really is what I love to do. And I love problem solving and I love talking to people. So what better work to do than to do public service? The public service work that I do is important because I know the work I do for Washington County will ripple out to others. I'm here from Hawaii, but serving the people of Washington County. At some point, the work I do in Washington County will help people in Multnomah County or Clackamas County or, across the state or the nation. And so that's one reason the work is very important. And number two, I can tell you, having been in private practice for almost 10 years before I came here, the people that you work with really make the difference for me. I could find meaningful work anywhere. I could go into the public sector and somewhere else, or I could go private. But really, it's the people that I work with that make it, that make me want to get up and do my best every day. And so I'm not just talking about our office. I'm confident that if I ever had an issue, a personal or professional one, I can call anybody on our roster and they will drop everything to come and help me or to pitch in. And you can't find that everywhere. I mean, I've looked, so I know it's true. And then I guess to sort of answer your question, Chair, about what would I tell someone who is looking to come into public service, I've actually talked to tons of students about coming to work here. When COVID hit and we had folks retiring, I pounded the pavement quite hard to try and get people to come and work for Washington County because of the two things that I mentioned. And also just because I really want to try and dispel this notion for young lawyers that you have to be, 10, 20 years into your practice before you can come to the county. That's not true. You can come here as a young attorney. I feel like confident our office is experienced enough and that we care enough to have people succeed. So I would love to have young lawyers come to our office and to experience what I've experienced here earlier in their careers, and quite frankly, not get PTSD from working in the private sector. It can be, especially for female attorneys of color, it can be a very disheartening, demoralizing experience in private practice. It's hard, it's a business. But here, the county is also a business, but we also care about people. And so I feel like it's the perfect marriage of doing what you love, showing you care for people, but yet being mindful about taxpayer money and doing the right thing. So that's my answer to your question. And then I'm sure there's questions about why I transitioned over to the sheriff's office, and it's really no secret. I litigated for them for 6 years. I know where all the skeletons are. And number one, and number two, no, they're just, great group of people. And we have the largest agency in the county, and they have problems that need solving. And I really love working with them. They're very dedicated. They have incredible challenges that they need to meet. And so I'm more than willing to put my skills and my talents to helping them solve those problems and helping to make public safety a #1 priority for our community. Sorry, and just a side note, I thank you, Tom, for mentioning that. I'm part of the Oregon Women Lawyers Working Parents Committee. It's a committee of working parents who are very dedicated towards helping, I guess, lawyers around the state who are parents to address issues. So as you know, when the murder of George Floyd happened, a lot of us on the Working Parents Committee, it's very fluid. People have babies, they roll off the committee, they come back on. But we thought it was important to create a 3-series workshop that was specifically remote so we could reach people and parents and practitioners in rural counties. It was limited to 50 people. And we hired one person, Karen Neri, who is a licensed professional counselor, and a JD, and her partner, who is also a licensed professional counselor, to give parents across the state who participated in this workshop tools to talk about their kids about racial injustice and to look at parenting through a racial justice lens. And so we did a 3-part workshop on that. And it was not cheap, but I thought it was important. So I worked hard to fundraise that money. And we got those workshops going and had a great conversation with parents around the state. And we were recognized by the National Committee of Women's Bar Associations for their National Public Service Award this year. And so I was in Chicago in July to accept that on behalf of the committee. So those types of issues, racial issues, diversity and equity have always been very important to me. I've worked on them, since I've been in Oregon, since 2002, so for over 20 years, especially to focus on diversifying our bar and bench. So that's a little bit of it now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioners?
One question I have, because of your passion,
Yes.
obviously, for involving people. And I don't expect an answer because as the chair points out, we have limited time. It's a big crowd. But one of the personal prejudices I have is that I think that we as professionals, whether it's my profession or yours, we don't advocate enough for folks coming in who may not have the same traditional path of education. And there are systems out there, work systems I'm involved with others, who have kids who are just not exposed. But if they could do anything from doing a little filing to pencil sharpening, which we don't do that anymore, obviously, but it's a thing. Wouldn't it be great to have some exposure and they're available? So I would hope that maybe you and Tom could talk about how would you use some of these kids? It doesn't cost a bunch. In fact, most of them are free to expose them to the kind of programs you're talking about. So I don't think everybody has to be a lawyer. I don't think everybody has to be a CPA, but there are careers within those professions that they could certainly do. So anyway, just think about it. We wrap up that passion and say, should we bring in some interns? Should we bring in some kids and expose them and get some real work and give them some real life experience? Just comment.
I can give you a very quick answer. So number one, I'm totally agreeing with you. And the bar for many, many years, at least as long as I've been around, has been working on pipeline initiatives. So getting high schoolers. When in my past life as a commercial litigator and a bankruptcy attorney, I went out to high schools to talk to the kids about the importance of credit card is not money, being financially accountable, knowing how to say no to offers like that. So I worked with the debtor creditor bar to do that at high schools, but Judge Paris was now retired. So the bar does have a lot of those initiatives with high school through undergraduate and also specifically for people of color and for women, minorities, LGBTQ as well. We have the OLEO program, which Oregon State Bar puts on every year for incoming Oregon law students. And I participate in that, and I've been doing that for decades. But I totally agree with you. And I would love, we've had our internship program that was offered by the HR department. I would love to have, college students to come into our office. And I have informally hosted or made arrangements for externs from law schools to work with us. So in the past, we've had that help as well. In fact, one of our former externs, Caleb Hugel, he's actually a staff attorney at Lupa now. So I would like to think that his work with us helped him to, he already loved land use, but it really helped him to get a foothold there. But I totally agree with you, giving those opportunities to people who otherwise wouldn't have those, and also having the opportunity to see people of color and women in positions of power and leadership, I think is incredibly important. So I would love to help you on that. Thank you.
Thanks. So now we're going to turn to professionals who are not lawyers in our office. And so these are our two paralegals. And we're going to start with DJ Davis. DJ actually is a lawyer. He has a law degree, but he's recovering. So he managed not to do that. John Mansfield in his remarks mentioned how good our paralegal staff is and how impressive, even compared to what he had in private practice. What we do is so much easier when you have people like Marissa and DJ. DJ, one of the challenges I'll talk about a little bit later is as we do public records requests, people are doing more and more electronic communication in more and more media. And we are still responsible for it. It doesn't matter how you communicate if someone makes a public records request. So we have a tool in the county that allows us to search every email in the whole county as part of our obligation of public records request. Obviously, that tool could be abused. So there are only two people in the county who have authority to use that, and they're sitting in front of you. But the challenge, of course, is that there are only two of them, and there are 2,000 county employees. So that's a big part. And someone asked me, well, does DJ do that only? And DJ's primarily the one who does it. No, he's not. He has a whole other portfolio of work, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing about staffing right now. But the two people who would scare me if either one left the most are these two. The office would come crashing to a stop, and they're not planning to leave. They promised me, right? So
Or both go on vacation at the same time.
well, we'll start with DJ first. JJ, go ahead.
Good morning, commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. So a little bit of background on me. I grew up in Montana and was drawn out to Oregon in 2000 to go to school at Linfield, where, to correct the record from John, I also majored in music. Following my graduation from there, I worked at the Oregon Historical Society for a couple of years before I moved out to New York to attend law school at Fordham University. Came back to the West Coast, worked in Seattle for a few years as an employee or an employment attorney for plaintiff side litigation, which was in a two-person law firm, which is a tough way to start a career. I moved down here, moved back down to Wilsonville, where I live currently, in 2014, and continued to work as a plaintiff's employment litigator in Salem until my second child was on the way, and working in a law firm that was exempt from the family leave requirements wasn't working for me. So I decided that I was probably best set up for a more support role anyway. You probably can't tell, but I don't love public speaking.
You do.
Thanks, I appreciate that. There were just, there's a number of challenges that led me to kind of reconsider my trajectory, and to Commissioner Rogers' point, not everyone has to be an attorney, and I still get to do the fun parts of the job. I still get to do
the research and the writing to some extent. Tom mentioned that there's only, two of us in the office, but each of the attorneys that we work with are very aware of that, and they are they're committed to, or they work very hard to make sure that we're not overwhelmed with the work. Especially when it comes to doing legal research and a lot of the writing, they do a lot of that themselves. I think it helps them to craft their own arguments when they get me arguing in front of a judge anyway, but that takes a kind of a load off my plate, although it's kind of the more fun load. When people ask me what do you do for the county, my glib response is whatever I'm told. And that kind of breaks down into those three categories up there. A lot of it is litigation support. I do a lot of work on condemnations, doing the pleadings, drafting, and assisting with discovery requests and that sort of thing. Probably the most important thing that we do as paralegals is docket the deadlines so that the attorneys know when they have to be where and what needs to be, what's the priorities right there. When tort notices or things of that ilk come in, we send out a litigation hold to everyone who has the information. I do a lot of electronic work as well. Tom mentioned the email searches. I do all of that. So we also have some tools that can search phone messages. As some of you know, I also assist in procuring phones that may contain public records when those need to be forensically analyzed. Probably the other biggest bucket that my work entails is public records requests. Anytime anything comes in that seeks an email, like all emails regarding this property or that offense or this person, or sometimes even broader requests, just all records referencing this person. We interpret that to include emails. And so it takes up a good portion of time to identify who might be the users who those emails belong to, how to kind of craft the search to eliminate all the unnecessary terms there, and then to pull it all out, organize it by date, turn it into PDFs, get it redacted and get it submitted. It's a process, and it's something that we're continuing to kind of streamline as we go, and I think it's getting easier. And then like the other, basically whatever I'm told to do is part of the job. Like I'm responsible for assigning ordinance numbers and maintaining the physical files for the ordinances. Recently, there was some litigation passed where once a juvenile offender reaches maturity, their juvenile records can be expunged. And that means going through and locating all the emails, isolating those emails and deleting those emails without violating the public records laws. So that's something that we're very recently working with, and I've been working closely with the DA's office, juvenile IT, to get those kind of efforts in place. So that's kind of a brief overview of what I do. Kind of to your question about why work here. Like I say, kind of the thing that brought me out here was, well, there's obviously the benefits, but working as a paralegal as opposed to an attorney for the county, like I find that there's a lot more support here than what I was used to in my career. There's like the attorneys are concerned about your work-life balance, they're concerned about your workload. They will ask you to do things, and they're understanding if you're not able to get everything done that you can. And several others have made the point that it's not just one thing. Like you're not just doing, workers' liability, workers' compensation liability laws, and having your hands kind of all those pies, it really makes it a lot of fun to come to work every day and see what you're going to be dealing with then. So,
Well, you may not realize it, DJ, but thank you for helping me get a lot more knowledgeable, but also comfortable with legal nomenclature.
certainly.
It's an area where I'm uncomfortable. I just can't seem to get it and grasp it, but I'm getting better, right, Tom? Thank you.
Thanks, DJ. And so Marissa is up next. So as I said, I've been a litigator for a long time, and one of the keys is having a paralegal who's going to tell me that I'm wrong. And Marissa has no problem with that. And I'm wrong enough. And so, because you don't want to file something that's wrong because somebody was afraid to tell you that you didn't have it right. And especially, for my transition into Oregon law, I've practiced in 4 other jurisdictions, and they're similar but different. And Oregon has some very strange things, not strange things, unique things about the way they require filings. And we always want to get it right. And Marissa has the ability to say, this isn't right. Or would you like me to fix that for you, Tom? Sometimes, politely, but I rely on her. And she works principally with John. So we do a lot of the litigation, or John does more than I do, but I do my fair share. And having Marissa as a backup is amazing. And she knows it and does it, and of course, is overworked. So Marissa, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Hi, I'm Marissa Jocelyn, paralegal. I've been with the county for 3 years. I started as a legal specialist, and before that, I worked in the private sector, as many of the folks in this office did. I worked for a employment law firm, boutique law firm downtown Portland. So it's been a neat transition. I get to, as DJ said, have my hands in lots of pies here at the county instead of just employment law, and I've really enjoyed that. I don't know how I feel about my one thing that Tom brings up is me telling people that I'm wrong. This is my defining factor for our office, but I'm glad at least that I have that presence. So let's see.
It's far better than the alternative of doing something wrong, right?
That's true.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Just go.
I did, one thing, I worked in the EOC for 3 months when it got first got stood up. And I really enjoyed that opportunity as somebody who's been in the legal field for a while now, to kind of go outside my, box and be able to just see other parts of the county, especially so early on in my work here, because I got to meet so many different people who were so very passionate about just helping other people, and in such a quick, rapid, I'm ready to get my hands dirty, roll up my sleeves kind of fashion. I just, having that experience really solidified me knowing that I had made the right career decision to come here. As you've heard all of the attorneys who've spoken before, this office really is unique. And as a paralegal, and as DJ said, having the ability or the opportunity to serve in this role and be a part of this team who also respects me very highly, and not having the letters after my name, really is extremely meaningful. And I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you guys today, and that you guys are willing to listen to somebody in my role. And I've told people, all my friends who don't work for the county and don't work in the legal field, that this really is a unique place. And, the kind of terrible things that people think about government work really aren't true, in terms of, the people are here to do the right thing. So thank you for that. As far as the office goes, I do a lot of what DJ already mentioned, docketing, litigation work, litigation support. That's what I've done before. I really have an eye for editing, so I see a lot of little silly things, and I tell Tom that he's wrong. And everyone else. But I also, it's funny that technology came up, because it's a really important piece. One thing I've heard said before is that law is catching up to technology. And so it's kind of a weird intersection where we have the tools available to us, and we're still kind of learning how to make the law work for that, and vice versa. So it's a neat area to be involved in, and it's a neat area to explore, I guess. And I really enjoy it. I've done trial work, not actually yet for the county, which is kind of nice, but a lot of that is technology, and it's kind of being on the cutting edge and showing that you can utilize that, because it is efficient. It helps people understand a bit better what you're doing. So outside of the office, everybody else knows this because I probably talk about it too much, but I like to ride motorcycles, and it's cool. And it's a big part of who I am, and I really like the community here in Oregon. I also do gardening. I spend time with my, dog and husband and that's about it for me.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have our last two. And certainly perhaps the most important, I'd say, for last. As you see, we're a little short on administrative staff, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later. But Patty Buck is her title is management analyst too. She's our office manager. She is the glue that holds us all together. She, as you probably are aware, the county has many processes, which I have been struggling to learn over the last year, to do things like hire someone, promote someone, buy something, arrange for a conference. And Patty knows how to do that. And she gets us through all of that and does an amazing job. And so for me, she basically has been my training person. And for her, she's had to bring in 5 new attorneys in a year and teach them how to do all the things that we do. And a lot of them, you talked about technology a little bit. We have technology, and you have to learn how to use it. And it's not simple. And that's been one of our challenges for the new folks. And Patty has patiently walked us through all of that. So I think I'll let her speak for herself, but I think this last 2 years are probably among the most challenging in her career, dealing with just such a transition in the office. And one of the things that I've observed in watching folks talk today is how seamless it seems. You really can't tell who's been here forever and who's just started. And I think that a lot of that's due to Patty, the integration in the office for such a big change in such a short time has been due to her. So Patty, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. I'll start out by saying I've been with the county since 2010. And before the county, I worked for a large insurance company in their legal department. And prior to that, I worked for a large telecommunications company in their legal department. So I started out doing secretarial work, and then I moved into paralegal, went back to school and got my degree in that. And then I got promoted to an office manager job during the time I was with the insurance company. And when that job closed, I was very lucky to get a job at the county, doing the same thing basically that I had done before. And what I like about it the most is that I'd like to be proud of where I work. And I've been proud of all of the places I work, and I'm proud of the reputation the county has. I'm proud of the work that the county does. I like the fact that as part of my job, I do the budget and monitor invoices. And the county has so many things that help us to be fiscally responsible. If you have a question, there's a place to go to get an answer. So that would be my favorite. And I really enjoy working with the people that I work with and the staff, the paralegals, Jen, the attorneys also. They can be a little more challenging at times. But I think we all get along really well and we have a good time, and that's really what I like. So as office manager, I supervise the staff, I participate in the hiring, develop the budget, monitor the budget. I'm the contract administrator also, so I do the contracts that county council initiates. And then I work with IT, facilities, and human resources. Among everything, I think I'm more of a jack of all trades. Whenever somebody has a question, I go find an answer. So.
I have a unique question for you.
Okay.
Unique in that none of the rest of you have had to answer this question yet. So with the arrival of COVID, we went from in 2019 working primarily in our offices to all of a sudden needing to do the safe and responsible thing and becoming a virtual organization. And now we are trying our darndest to function well and smoothly in a hybrid organization. What would you say is one of those things that maybe surprised you in those transitions or have appreciated that you've been able to do in helping us as an organization function in this ever-changing environment?
Well, I was surprised at how smoothly it went, that you could get all your work done from home. Even the supervision piece, how, with teams, how easy it was to keep in touch with people. And with all the technology to get your job done, to get all your invoices paid, how little you really needed to come in, but also how you kind of missed coming in because you wanted to see people. And so when we started coming back into the office, that was, it was a different feeling. So, but we still have the option to work in a hybrid environment. So that's very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. And then last but not least, Jan Jensen, who is our sole administrative support, and which is challenging, but also sort of the heart and soul of the office. When she's in the office, she works remotely sometimes too. She sits at the front desk, and so she'd be the first person you see. She's the person I see every time I walk in and out of the office, and I get to chat with and get to know. She is amazing and diligent and handles all this with almost seamlessly. But see, they have personalities, and so they're not always the case. But wonderful personalities. So Jen, do you want to say a few things?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jan Jensen. I have been providing admin support to this department for almost 7 years, and I absolutely love it. Really happy and proud to say that I work with these people, and glad that I can support them in all they do for the county. As part of my role with the county, I am at the front desk sometimes. Of course, we don't really get the public or anyone in there unless they're lost, but sometimes I see you guys come
Or a
in.
lost commissioner.
People aren't sneaking in the back door. I do get to see them and greet them at the front. But so basically, I have the front desk duties. I process and distribute the legal mail, which includes tort claims, for the new complaints that come in or anticipation of litigation to the county, and I distribute those to everyone and to risk so that people are informed. I maintain, kind of general things, office supplies. I'm also involved with file management, which includes, unfortunately, we still have a lot of paper. We're trying to work on cutting that down. And then I am also, I take care of the archiving and manage destruction memos as part of the job. I schedule their education and try to kind of manage and track that for them. I assist Eamon, who is a civil commitment today, with those civil commitments, and I do the filings for him with the court as needed. You probably know my name because I send you the hot sheet. So I'm learning payroll as backup for Patty, and I'm also and have been the sustainability liaison for quite a long time. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. I am also a native Oregonian, as some of these folks are. I grew up in Milwaukee and moved to Hillsborough in 1988. Kind of a fun little fact. I met a gentleman and he said, I need some help with my company out in Hillsborough. And I said, gosh, I have cousins that live out there in the country. I've always wanted to move out there. So he said, okay, come on out. So he owned the Hillsborough landfill. Well, little did I know that I was going from working for some chiropractors in a medical office to working in a shack about this big with a yardstick measuring trucks and trailers as people would enter with their garbage. But it turned out to be a very interesting experience as I was there for almost 10 years. And I went through the transition from that and the sale of the landfill to USA Waste, Santa Fe Waste Management, and was there and was able to help in the development and the building of the putting in the scale house and the whole thing. So that was very, very interesting. And so that's a little local tidbit, Aside from that, I have mainly worked in accounting. When I left there, I was doing the accounts receivable, and then I went to McMenamin's corporate office, and I was in charge of the accounts payable there. I did a little bit of temping after that at Solar World and with the city of Forest Grove, and then was lucky enough to see this ad. And at that point, I wanted to settle down and find a new home for the rest of my future working life. And, 6-mile commute. It was awesome. And anyway, so I'm here and I'm very happy.
Ooh, watch out, Tom, the finance department may be coming after you.
They will never get any legal work done if they.
Well, I will add too that whenever I have walked walked into the legal team's office area, whether it's through the front door or the back door, usually head for Jan's desk so that I have some human contact to say, I'm here, here's my problem, or here's what I need. How do I get some help? And there, Tom, your team has been really awesome from the first day that I started here, and really being perhaps overly concerned about doing things legally. And at times when I was like, oh my God, I need a lawyer in the room to make sure I don't screw this up. Just saying, I need a lawyer. And someone was always there to at least help guide me. So thank you, Jan, for always helping us, me, anyone feel welcome, and to figure out how we go about getting our needs met. It's really been wonderful.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Commissioners.
This just for me, out of intellectual curiosity, what are you using for an electronic file cabinet?
Well, we have Pro Law, which is our,
That's your case stuff, but,
yes.
It also is our file management system.
oh, it does.
Yeah.
So what's all paper for?
What was all the paper for?
Yeah.
We're working at getting rid of the paper, Roy, but we do keep paper copies of ordinances. And we have the Pro Law is recognized by the Secretary of State as an archival tool. So we try to use that as our archiving system, but there still is some, but we went from a file room that was basically the size of 2 offices to one that's the size of half of an office in the last year. So we have reduced our paper drastically, and Jan has been a crucial part of that. And one of the things is probably true in your practice, trying to get lawyers to give up paper to get rid of something scares them because they're afraid they'll never be able to find it again. So
That's a memory. That's right.
yeah, but we've been
Secret's hiring under 35. For those of us over that,
Well,
we like paper, but yeah.
But one experience I had in the office one day during the very early days of COVID, so folks were remote. I happened to be in the office that one particular day, and a lawyer from elsewhere in the world showed up, and I happened to be in the reception area, and he said, "Oh, you're Chair Harrington?" I said, "Yes," and he hands me this pile of paperwork, and I'm like, okay. I wasn't served or anything like that, but the county had been, served this documentation, and the courier was doing a very thorough job in making sure that the multiple departments had copies of this. But I was like, oh no, what do I do with this? So trot, I go over to the legal team, and I'm like, now what do I do? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll take care of this. Thank you very much. And I was like, phew.
We may not have as much control over what comes in, obviously, and we do get multiple copies of, tort claims and all of that sent to, the sheriff's office and to risk and to us and to your office, CAO and everything. But, we're doing our best internally to do what we can to cut that down and, not create more paper.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
So Chair Harrington, we're at time for the whole thing, and we're supposed to have a second part of this. So I will try to run through this relatively quickly so that we end at 11 o'clock, if that's okay. And I can come back and do more if that's preferable. I don't want to put you way off schedule. And that took longer than I planned, but I was incredibly valuable to me, and I hope it was to you as well.
Very meaningful as well, not only to those of us here in the room today, but also for those in our hybrid world. But we do have folks who watch these meetings after the fact as well. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, this was, Tom, I just want to say thank you for your leadership. What a way to demonstrate your collaborative leadership and empowering the leadership. This was a really way to open up democracy to, not only to the 5 of us and the rest of the folks in the room, but the 600,000 people that live in Washington County. And Kevin talked about earlier the ways we share and make our meetings accessible. So I'm really proud that you did this, and it was very helpful to me. I remember when I came on board, I had a quick meeting with Alan, the previous county council. And I think one of the things he said to me was, I'm the county council Basically I think he was trying to help me understand because I was completely lost, obviously. COVID, now elected, have to just be onboarded on Zoom. So I think he was trying to be concise and clear in how he delivers his message. And it came across as, I'm the attorney for the commissioners. And I remember asking, how many team members do you have? And he said some certain numbers. And I remember thinking, did these 5 commissioners get in trouble that much that you need to help them? So I didn't, but obviously with that comment, he had to sit me down for an hour and explain his office. And learned a lot and really grateful. And the stories I heard today from you all reminded me of my own story. I ran for this seat because I came here as a refugee and utilized county services. And then I went on to work for county myself. So I felt like this is where my heart was in, but my resume was coming across, to use Patty's words, jack of all trades. And others were asking me, why don't you run for this seat? Why don't you run for that seat? Because at the time I made the announcement, there were multiple seats in Washington County available to run. And I remember telling people, my heart is in this. And that's the message I got from you all. You work for the county because your heart is in this and you help, not only protect the county, but also protect the people that the county serve. And that's the message that I heard. So I'm really grateful for what you do and really appreciate. And if I can be any help, let me know and I'll make sure to push Tom. But you have an amazing boss and I really appreciate, he seems to be you come across to me, I don't know the law or anything, but you seem like a cutthroat lawyer. I would not want to be. You're also very passionate and kind leader. So it's a rare qualities and talent to have. So I appreciate it.
I just want to quickly say how since I started, I've worked with many of you and I've always been impressed with your expertise, but being able to meet firsthand the rest of you and see what it is that you do and listen to your level of commitment, it was great. And it was time very well spent for me. So I second what Commissioner Fry said. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your passion.
So Tom, do proceed because this is important work and it's going to take the time that it takes. That's why we schedule these roundtable days so that we have the opportunity to go through it. So we did start at 9. So we do like to take a bio break in there and then a lunch break as well. So is this a natural time for us to take a break right now, or should we continue on? What do you suggest?
I defer to you. I think I can go through this material in about 10 minutes, if that's okay.
So I just want to make sure I'm being clear. It's not, we want to make sure you take the time so that
Of
we all
course.
absorb it.
Yes.
Not just that you have a chance to deliver it.
But if you think it's, I was going to add, if you think it's appropriate to take a bio break now, that would be fine.
I'm fine to keep going or do.
Nope, we're all fine then.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
So the part of this part is accomplishments and challenges. And one of the things I need to just recognize Alan Rappelier. He did a tremendous job in the transition. He's been a resource to me. He's not in the room, and that's not fair. A lot of the people here, Alan hired. Alan reached out to me between the time I was hired and the time I started and let me sit in on interviews for folks so that I could help make the decision even before I started. And so, we talk about accomplishments. The people are the accomplishments. We've hired 4 new attorneys and had to integrate 5. Obviously, you hired 1, me. So that 5 of us are new out of a staff of 10 and a half. So that part, as I mentioned, is the biggest part. One of my goals, and I've talked to you about this before, is the succession planning piece. Let's not let what happened here happen again. And so having the deputy county counsels was a big deal for me, and working through the county process to create those positions, hire, integrate, that's all been accomplished. And I can't tell you how important that is to me and how pleased I am with your support in being able to do that. we reclassified one attorney as a senior assistant county counsel. That's Jason. Jason, as of August 20th, was promoted from a county counsel two to a senior county counsel. And as you can recognize, he more than deserves that. So, and again, working through the process, one of the things the county doesn't really have a promotion scheme. You don't promote, you reclassify. So you have to justify the change in position based on the change in duties. And obviously, a lawyer who's 5 years out of law school does different work than a lawyer who's 10 or 15 years out of law school. And so being able to recognize that change is important. And so that I listed that as important. We've reorganized the way we do litigation. It was more of a sole practitioner model in the past. And I've always found that litigation works best if you do it as a team. I don't have all the answers, nor does John or Eamon or Kim. Well, Kim does actually have most of it. But being able to, we sit down once a week and go through every case we have on our docket and talk about it. And so, sometimes there's just nothing happening, but others we talk about what approach should we take, and is there a different motion we can make? Is there something? How's the discovery going? And having that feedback and letting me participate in that helps me do the supervisor work, but also it helps me understand what's going on. So, and litigation is some of the most important stuff. Eamon just walked in, so.
Eamon, you're real.
So do you mind if I go back? Eamon, come on, come up here. No rest for the weary, pal.
And I was saying earlier that you're the mystery man.
I know, I come in, I go, and then no one really sees me, so.
Only because I'm better with faces than I am names. So thank you for being able to join us despite all the other things that call all of your attention away.
So, and I appreciate it. Eamon is, as you may have noticed, the youngest person on our team, and hopefully the future.
Well, somebody has to be.
Somebody has to be. And Eamon handles litigation. He's got a sort of can-do attitude. He takes on stuff without question. He does most of the adult in custody cases. Every person in the county jail has the ability to write a complaint with a pencil and piece of paper, and we get almost one a week. And Eamon he's got some of the more challenging cases, and some of the people who are in prison for very serious crimes continue to sue the county for all sorts of things that happened when they were in the jail. So Eamon's been handling those, and he handles them with a great. He also is the general counsel for the DA's office, which, as you can imagine, presents some challenges. Eamon's a former assistant district attorney, so he has great trial skills. And as I said earlier, he took over civil commitments. That's what he was doing this morning. So, Eamon, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So just a little bit of background on myself. I'm actually from the area. I grew up here. My grandparents actually lived over in Murray Hill, so I've been coming to Washington County since I was a kid. And went to school in Chicago and then Los Angeles before coming back because I just missed being in the Northwest so much. Worked as a DDA in Multnomah County for 3 years before deciding to go into civil practice. I did that for about 2 years and realized I really missed doing public service, and that was something that was really important to me. And I was fortunate enough to be offered this job about a year and 2 months ago. And I've loved it. It's been a great fit. I really enjoy being back in the public service realm. Like Tom was saying, a big part of what I do, civil commitments was where I just was, and working with mental health, kind of helping them figure out what cases are or are not appropriate for civil commitment, dealing with a wide variety of different litigation matters that we have. That kind of fits in nicely with my background, both in civil litigation and then as a prosecutor. And then finally, they're kind of letting me cut my teeth on doing some advisory stuff, which is something I really enjoy and something I like because I like the problem solving aspect of that. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to meet with us. This is great.
Is it typical or atypical to have the county counsel office be advisory to the DA's office?
So every employee in the DA's office is a county employee.
Right.
So they need the same service. Obviously, the DA is an elected official, makes his own policy determinations and runs his office, but it's an interesting relationship. And we try to build a cooperative relationship with the DA, with all of the elected officials.
Yeah.
Because obviously we don't control the elected officials, but we care very much about their employees because they're county employees. They have the same rights as everybody else. And so Eamon, and it's good having Eamon working with them because we sometimes have challenges, different interests between, say, the sheriff's office and the DA's office, and being able to have two lawyers who like each other working together to help resolve those can be really helpful.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks,
We-
Eamon.
Thank you.
Sorry to do that to you, pal, but
Do we do that for other elected as well,
Yep.
for the auditor office and?
yeah, I represent the auditor's office, and John represents the judge. And obviously Kim does the sheriff, and Eamon does the DA, but so yes.
Cool, thank you.
One of the things that Alan identified in his memo was that the fact that the sheriff's office required more than one attorney. And so we, as I said, we transitioned out of Elmer, who has been doing it since 1996, and brought in Kim. But Elmer, with some begging on my part, agreed to stay on. So he's been working for us about half-time while he's also been doing some private practice, and that has been a godsend. So we now have, we're basically staffing the sheriff's office with 1.5 attorneys, which, considering their needs, is probably about right, especially since Elmer's more like 2.5 attorneys, considering his depth of knowledge. So his level of efficiency is high. So between the two of them, I think we're providing adequate service to the sheriff's office, which is one of the challenges that as I said, Alan identified in his memo. We've been working to reduce new expenditures on outside counsel. If you take out we have one big case that's we're being handled. You take that out, we've seen about, I think, 28% reduction in outside counsel use compared to on a month-to-month average compared to prior. And that is natural, since when we dropped attorneys, they had to hire outside counsel to handle all that stuff. We're reducing the expenditure. A significant portion of the expenditure is on outside investigations. One of the things that Alan recommended and the board authorized was the hiring of an internal investigator. That process is still ongoing. We should be bringing someone on the next couple of months. Once we have our own internal investigator, the number of outside investigations we conduct should fall almost to zero. So in my view, the only time we should use outside counsel is if that we need a specific area of expertise that it's not cost effective to bring in-house, such as environmental or something that's once rare. We did recently bring in outside counsel for some major litigation, just to advise. John and I will be handling the litigation in-house, but it's an area that we don't have particular expertise in, and it's high potential risk. So we've retained someone just who we consult with. So that's where we are. I'm hoping to keep that number down. I think we have a fine staff here, and I always prefer to have the dedicated professionals here doing the work rather. So one of the things that's challenging for a law office is metrics. How do you measure success? And I've been in many conferences where we've discussed, like, how many contracts do you process? Or and the problem with that is if you take a metric, it changes the observation, because if you say contracts are what you're going to measure, that's the first thing you're going to do. And they're not necessarily the most important thing. So I like, as I think I mentioned to you, I like to do a survey of our clients. So we surveyed the leadership team, which is all of the directors, the CAO's office, and the electeds. And I got 46 responses. And so I asked five questions. What's your overall experience with our office? Level of responsiveness, knowledge, usefulness of help, and value added to your department work product. And so these are the numbers. It's on a scale of 1 to 5. So high 4s for everything. You see the lowest one there is responsiveness. And that, I think, is a level of workload. And it comes from a couple of attorneys who are really overworked. And it's something we will work on in the next year. So this is a baseline, and I will provide you this this to you annually, and we'll see where we go from here. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. I'm particularly proud of that last category, because that we are a service department. We don't do anything. We don't provide direct services to the community. So keeping our costs down and providing a high level of service is what we're supposed to do. And if we can add value to the business of the people who actually do provide the service to the company, to the community, then we're doing our job. And so to have that number be the highest really means a lot to me, because that's really where the rubber hits the road. Are we helping the people who are serving the community do their jobs better? And they seem to think so, at least from this little survey. Challenges. So staffing. And as Alan mentioned in his memo, we are understaffed compared to other, like Multnomah or even Clackamas. to other counties. I think we're about right now. So these numbers are where we are. We're authorized 18.5 FTE. We have 15.5 on staff right now, 11.5 attorneys. One is vacant and frozen, and that's my responsibility. The commission authorized 2 new positions. We hired one, and I wanted to let it settle for a bit before I hired the second one. Just to see where the workload went and also see if we could improve our diversity hiring practices. And so, because we weren't getting diverse candidates, even though we did a lot of the things that we're supposed to do. So I let it sit, and during the budget freeze, it was frozen. So it's still frozen, and I have not asked for it to be unfrozen. We are part of that process, and that's an equitable process. There are a lot of people who need the positions a lot more than we do. So that'll sit for a while. We have 1 management analyst, so that's Patty, 3 paralegals, 1 vacant, and we're hiring for that. And that's important to me. That was a legal specialist position. We've converted it to a paralegal because I think that the legal specialist is actually doing a lot of paralegal work. So you can see that, in my view, Marissa and DJ are way overworked, and having another paralegal on board will be really helpful. We have just gotten the authorization to go ahead and proceed with that hiring, so we will do that and hopefully have somebody on board. We have the 1 administrative specialist, which is Jan, whom you met, and 1 legal specialist, which is another position, another administrative position that is vacant and frozen. And that will also sit for a little bit as we work out through the county.
Sorry to interrupt.
Of course.
Could you help me understand what the legal specialist does compared to a paralegal versus an administrative specialist? It's part of my education, and I can take it offline
Well,
too.
no, and that's actually why we converted the other legal specialist to a paralegal. I thought that the person who was the legal specialist who left was doing basically what I would consider paralegal work for about half of her workload. And so it's legal filings, it's review, it's a lot of the work in the condemnation cases, which is more rote work than, and so as DJ said, he prepares a lot of the pleadings because they're pretty standard. So having someone in that position, so we may ask that position be converted to a paralegal position to be able, because I'd rather have someone doing work that's a little below their pay grade than having someone working out of pay grade above, which is what was happening, I think. So it's a great question. It's a blurry line is the answer.
Thank you.
So new litigation files opened. As you can see, and actually that number, the 121 for this year, that's sort of an estimate. It's annualized data based on year-to-date data. As of August 18th, we had 96 new cases. And that actual number should be 152, not 121. So you can see we are opening more litigation files, a significant increase over the last 6-7 years. That may be an artifact of just doing a better job of documenting things. So we have more files. We open a new file not only for just a complaint, but whenever we get a tort claim or when we have an event that we think could result in potential liability, such as a death in the jail. So we keep track of the things that way. We do litigation polls through the litigation files, so we do it. So we may be just doing a better job of opening files, but in my perception, we also have more litigation. And as you know, we've had litigation that's sort of test cases for the state, the Ridwell litigation, the tobacco litigation, the significant natural resources litigation, where we are sort of the one chosen one, which I'm not necessarily thrilled about, but that's going on. So
we're the 2nd largest county, populous
and
county.
not surprising. And the county is active. We're doing good things, and so sometimes you get challenged. The tobacco litigation is a perfect example of that. We poke the bear. The tobacco industry is huge, well-funded, and litigious. So it's the right thing. We'll have to litigate over things like that. That's just the nature of the business. But we are seeing an increase. Contracts approved per year. Again, that last number should be 2045. It's annualized based on 1,328 as of August 25th. So again, that's a real number. Those are the number of contracts we have approved each year. And as you can see, it keeps going up. Some of that is obviously related to COVID. When we had a lot of funding to distribute, we did a lot more contracts. And so every contract that the county does goes into our electronic system and has to be approved by an attorney. And some of the contracts, one of the things that really impressed me when I came here was that most contracts are done on a form. So we have on our website templates for contracts, and we require that people use our template. And so 90% of the contracts are on a form. So if I'm reviewing a contract and I see it's on our form, I can just check to make sure they use the right form and check that all the attachments are correct, and I'm done 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If, however, someone has rewritten a contract, I have to read every word and make sure it's right and make sure it's nothing that we don't agree with. And you heard earlier that ITS contracts are a challenge because technology companies are used to people just clicking on things that are 35 pages long that they never read. And some of that stuff, being a government, there are things you just can't agree to. Yes.
How many of you lawyers appreciate having DigiSign?
Yeah.
My wrist thanks all of you.
But
It's the electronic signature tool we use for contracts.
so for us though, things like arbitration clauses where we're giving up our sovereignty to be able to go to court, things like indemnification. We never want to agree to indemnify someone, stand for someone else's debt. We want to we want to make sure that the county has a remedy against the party. The IT companies are notorious for saying your remedy is limited to the cost of the product. So if they have a HR system that takes down the county and we end up paying thousands of dollars in damages, they don't want to be responsible for that, even though they might be. So negotiating those things are challenging. Usually, unfortunately, what usually happens is the client has picked something through a process that they think is really good. So we don't really have an ability to say no. So we push back, but it is one of the more challenging areas. So we're getting more contracts and they're getting more complex. This is the scary one, public records requests. The data is kind of iffy because we only are required to keep data for 3 years. And as we go forward, I will keep this data so it'll be better. So both 2019 and 2022 are projected annual based on partial data. Looked like there was a drop in 2020 for some of the 2020 and 21 are actually hard numbers. Those are the number of public records requests. That's a gross number. It doesn't really tell you that much. It tells you that those are the number we got. If I can get a request that's asked for one document, it takes 5 minutes, it's done. Or we can get a request that asks for every record in the county and we work on it for weeks and months. And I mentioned that DJ has the ability, EDJ primarily, Georgia Marissa, to go through every email. Once we do that search, someone has to sit down and look at them, especially if there's potential privilege. So a lawyer will sit down and look at every email to make sure it's not privileged. So the amount of work that comes with public, and of course there's a timeline, and you can't wait too long. You have to respond within 3 days, and you have to work diligently to respond. It can take longer, but it can be challenging, and it's one of those things where you sort of have to put your other work aside and do it. And we do, and we haven't had, knock on wood, for any lawsuits over our stuff. We've had some challenges on our decisions, and we've dealt with those with the DA. But we try to do our job. So I know that I ran through that very quickly, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, thoughts? This is a bit of the first time we've gone through this process. So all questions are welcome as always.
Just a comment. I appreciate the last part here, Tom, with seeing the numbers and getting a perspective of the activity of the office. And so specifically for me, it was the difference between litigation files opened, and as you pointed out, that was even a smaller number than real. So yeah, we have a lot of activity and certainly continue to be in the spotlight, I guess, of litigation. So yeah, this was a good snapshot. So thank you for this.
John, the only thing that was helpful, and I told this to Alan, I told it to his predecessor, and his predecessor, is that in a lot of professional practices, you do a capacity report and like a backlog. And I really don't know what that would look like for you. They used to try to do it here and say, well, commissioners, if you want us to take on a particular land use issue, a particular ordinance, it's going to be X number of hours, so that we could gauge and then try to look at the staffing that might be necessary. So your caseload's going up, and I'm not surprising. I don't know whether those are severe issues, minor issues. I can't tell how, if I were in your position and I want to make a case for more lawyers and more staff, I would be saying, here's the amount of effort, here's the amount of my backlog. That's why I need it. It's hard to just look at raw numbers and say, so, as you say, a half hour, an hour. Just a suggestion. I'm not.
Well, and it's a great thought, Commissioner Rogers. The challenge that we face is, and for all lawyers, is we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's sitting out there in departments that they haven't brought to us. And one of the balances, we want people to come in our door. So we don't want people to not go to the lawyers. We want to be opening. I try to track the strategic plans of the departments to see what's coming up, to see what's going to come into our record. The challenge with being a government lawyer is you don't control your workload. I have no say in my workload. I mean, I've talked about litigation, but the work that Courtney and Jacqueline do, that we have an idea about where housing and transportation are going and what projects are coming forward. But I will tell you, every time I see an agenda item that talks about transportation, it scares me because that's a workload issue for us. But we never want to be the one saying no. That the department has their mission and they need to achieve it, and we need to help them.
I don't want to belabor this because we're late, but private side, we have the same issue.
Yeah.
We don't know everything every day is.
Yep, especially in your practice.
Yeah. And so what we're doing is trying to understand the backload that's present so that if we add more work, we already know what's in the pipeline. With Tanya was trying to do the budget, she's guessing at things too.
Yep.
She doesn't really know, but you try to take a parameter. But just a suggestion, it'd be nice.
Well, and
to
I
know.
appreciate that. I will work on that.
Yeah, what do you have in-house? If you got no more cases, how long would it take you to do what you got? Yeah, just a suggestion.
Great, thank you.
And I'll add that one of the things that I am far more sensitized to now here in 2020 versus back in the beginning of 2019 is the effect of state legislation, state mandates, to use that term, and especially those where we in local government have to pick up the cost for implementing on behalf of our community. So as we move forward in different legislative years with long sessions or short sessions, it's something that I'm going to be asking our government relations team to help me have a better understanding of from one year to the next, because we are at that breaking point, or at least we're now open and transparent about the fact that we are at that breaking point. And I think it's only right for us to ensure that our state legislators know we'll continue to do good work. They'll continue to do good work on behalf of our agency, but we have to make sure that we are actually able to implement the good work that is desired. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity today. And thank you for appointing me to lead this group. It's, as you can tell, it is an incredible group and it is a great pleasure to do what I do. It's an honor to lead them. As you can see, they don't need a whole lot of leadership. They do a lot on their own. And so I want to thank you all for this time and for the opportunity to sort of show off what we have in our office and to let you meet the people I get to work with on a daily basis. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. And as you've shared with me, there isn't a class or a track in law school about how to be a good manager or operating partner for a law firm, whether it's a boutique law firm, general government, whatever. So it's really important that I think we've had the time with you and with your team to expand our knowledge and provide for more full knowledge about the tremendous work that's being done. So thank you so much for being open to have this time with us today. So commissioners, just a time check. I know I need a bio break for sure. We have the board initiatives and CWS directors initiatives sync up, which I think will be a short item. Then we have a potentially more lengthy topic, though still not all that long, with AOC coverage and discussion and a lunch break as well. So it is conceivable that after a 15-minute break, we might be able to push through both of those two items pretty quickly within a half an hour, and then take the hour lunch break and pick back up with an executive session probably at about 1:15 or so. Might that work for everybody?
need to be out here about 1:30, 1:35.
The executive session shouldn't take very long.
Okay.
We should be able to do that in 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. Okay, well then let's do that. Let's take a 15-minute break and we will reconvene no later than 11:40. Okay? Likewise. Thank you so much for being here. No, no,
Well,
no,
no, mine's at
no.
1:30.
You bet. Yeah.
So is that what that was? I want to remind him, my iPad.
I'm not the only one.
in charge of
That's
Tuesdays.
okay. We
snacks.
can wait 15 more seconds.
Oh, is that right? I don't know.
I got some sludge bars that they got from Clean Water. Is that, you like those?
No.
Why not?
Tom, I could see, I could tell we had your entire legal department down here. The lights were starting to dim. There was no work getting done here, the generation.
Where'd they go?
Yeah, where'd that go?
They wanted to
Good job,
leave
fancy
after they did their presentation.
Oh,
Hey,
all righty.
yeah, so
So get us all rolling again. Terrific.
There was
Great.
a third screen there. What
Well-
was that third screen?
Picture.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Starship Enterprise.
yeah, we were saying, what a fancy.
And you'll see on the screen, under participants, we do still have an audience, no worries. So it's more than just us folks here in the room. So, okay, we just have a couple of more items to touch on today. Also, all this information has been in your packet. The roundtable rollout plan, there's nothing new to highlight here. Rather, just making sure that we always have that in our packet. The board initiatives, we reviewed that in our last roundtable. So I took my notes, made sure to make sure we had the electronic copy of that. So there should be equally no surprises there. Our great leadership for clean water services has provided an update on the board initiatives for the Clean Water Services Agency. In addition to giving us an update on 2022, they have exceeded expectations and already have a proposal for 2023. So at this juncture, let me just check in with our CEO, Diane Taniguchi-Dennis. Welcome, Diane. Is there anything more you would wish to highlight?
Thank you, Chair. I think we were able to identify those initiatives that the board is interested in, and as well as the board wants to have ownership on. Let me know if we missed anything. I included those items that were part of the CEO review process, but I think we have a good path moving forward. And I did want to thank the board for all of your support as I'm going through the changes with my mother. So thank you very much.
Well, it's all part of our being a supportive workplace, family-friendly organization, and helping one another get through not only careers, but our personal lives that help construct ourselves as a complete person. I do also want to highlight that on Wednesday, December 7th, we will be having a board training session for clean water services. You'll see that towards the bottom of the 2022 chart, and we'll make sure to get that added to the rolling agenda in a future set of information as well. So that's it for this section, but Commissioner Fye reminded me that for just a timely information sync up, there is one item that she would like us to check in on today.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I appreciate that. I just wanted to quickly, among us, check in about the RUFA funding and the Trails Bond conversation happening at JPAC. I sent you an email, and Washington County and its cities, I'm just gonna, just for the folks that might have an opportunity to review this video later or is watching, just for context. Washington County, its cities and THPRD submitted projects for proposal that were both high priority and likely to score well. That resulted submitting request only for 25% of available RUFA and park bond funding. I asked our staff why we didn't request more funding. And the response that I got from our staff was we were a bit limited in terms of staff capacity in preparing applications and also meeting match requirements. For context, the city of Portland, with similar population as Washington County, submitted requests for between 89% to 96% of the funding. And I just want to extend my gratitude to our staff for being strategic in their submission for projects that would score high enough for funding. I shared with you a spreadsheet that laid out multiple options and had a lot of comments and some of the funding requirements. Kevin, we can post that spreadsheet for our public. But option 3 in those 3 options has the best outcome for Washington County. In that option, everyone takes a loss, and Washington County's projects are funded except 3.5 million of the 4.5 million requested for Brookwood. At JPAC last month at our meeting, I pointed out that if option 2 is considered to move forward, which seems to be the most logical option to come forward and to JPAC for a vote, that Washington County would ask for the slush funding left over, which is about $1.4 million. And because obviously in the option 2, we're not getting all of our projects funded. The 9 projects that we submitted, only 7 are getting funding for option 2. So that's why we made the comment to get the slush funding to go towards both the 2 projects that are not getting funding, which is Allen Boulevard and Fano Creek. But as I pointed out in my email, there's a bit of a funding gap between those 2. I think it's about 2 million combined, the 2 projects, and the available fund then at JPAC last month was about 1.4 million. Now, since then, I forward you another email from our staff in terms of just a context for updates. And what I forwarded was a message from Chris that summarized what are being heard regarding our need for the slush money. So it's good that we're being heard, that we need the slush money. And I think that slush fund increased to 1.6 in that email. That's what it said. And my thoughts, obviously we don't have any throwaway projects. We need funding for both projects. And I would like to engage a quick dialogue today with you to see if you are all in agreement to direct our staff to carry the message forward that we would use that slush fund for both projects. So we would be in support of option 2 with the 1.6 million going to both Allen Boulevard and Fano Creek. Thoughts?
And the clarification on the direction is, and why today, is because TPAC will be taking this up tomorrow.
Yes.
And so this is the meeting where we need to provide that timely direction from us to our staff.
Right.
Quick clarification on one point on the difference between option 2 as currently defined and option 3 as currently defined versus what you articulated as option 2 and splitting the money across those 2 projects. Could you help me better understand what the difference is between that, the splitting across those 2, and what option 3 has?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but option 3 is not on the table for JPAC. So that's off the conversation right now. What's on the table is option 2, which has a slush money, which is that. So option 3 actually gives us the best option for Washington County. We would get all of our projects basically. It doesn't give us the 25% of the funding that we requested. However, it does give us a closer amount. But that isn't an option that's coming forward. So I'm not sure if I should pull out that spreadsheet to go over, which I could do, but so
Go ahead.
I was just looking at your notes here. The one piece about option 3 is Brookwood. Is that correct?
yeah, I think the funding. Yeah, let me pull it up. Go ahead.
If you want to look at one.
Yeah. I see it. I haven't.
You have it.
I didn't need to.
It looks like Brookwood loses.
No, Brookwood Overpass has partly funded in scenario 2, 1 million of 4.5 million.
I was talking about option 3.
Oh, option
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, the Brookwood is the only hiccup. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
There's it.
Yep.
I can pull out the notes. Yeah, the option 3 is the Brookwood, but yeah.
Well, here would be my comments as a pause. Catherine was on the JPAC as well. She clearly, I think, articulated this in our last meeting. The regional flex funds is a small amount of money. And everybody fights over it because it's flexible. If the option 3 is not going to be really seriously considered anyway, I would trust that you would do the best you could with option 2. So I trust that's what you're going to do. The only question I would have is the splits, and that was kind of what was being brought up. But having 2 underfunded projects is not really a great idea. I would hope that you'd use your best judgment, and if one loses out, not that we like it, but it happens. I'd try to fund one of them so at least it gets materially done. I've never liked where we spread it like peanut butter, and you got a little of this and a little of that, and nothing really concrete. But that's my only comment. I think you'll do fine.
Yeah, I think funding one project, Allen Boulevard is about less than 800. So we would leave money on the table. And then Sano Creek itself is 2 million.
Right.
So I think either way, we are going to have to figure out where to get the gap, where to fill the gap. But the idea is we would at least knock off one project and then have funding to start off the conversation about the design, and then have a little bit of money for construction, and then fill out the gaps that way, rather than having somewhere to.
The only other comment that I used to do is to simply say, we're good regional partners and we understand it's not giving us what we want, but we would hope in the next time around this table, remember, that we were good regional partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
another
we'll
bite.
Certainly go for.
Yeah.
And we do still have projects in this modified option 2, if I can refer to it that way, that don't get funded at all. So we're trying to help make the most of what is available, and making sure that we get more than just 16% of the funding, the regional funding, with Portland and Multnomah County getting over 70% of the funding.
Yeah.
It seems a little out of kilter to me. From
Yeah.
prior, I mean, I've been through not as many rough rounds as you, or flex fund rounds as Commissioner Rogers, but I've been through several, and this one just is a little bit, the skew is
Wonky.
too far. For me, it's too far.
A bridge too far.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do want to acknowledge the guru of this conversation. Chris walked into the room and is here if we have any further detail questions, but Chris does have a TPAC meeting tomorrow, which is why we're just getting inputs for how to move forward as Washington County.
You'll do good.
So Commissioner Rogers and I are in support of your modified option 2. do the two of you, Commissioner
Yeah,
Treese,
we're good.
there, and so are you, Commissioner Willie? Great, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, well, so that takes care of that agenda topic. And with very few papers in my hand, how do I manage to lose my, here's the agenda. Okay, so our last topic between now and lunch for our stomachs is a quick sync up on AOC as well as discussion on board appointments, specifically for the West Side Economic Alliance. So in your packet was information that I put together. We did talk about AOC committee coverage last in previous roundtables, but I made sure with Kevin, our board clerk's help, to ensure that you had it in your latest packet. So I pulled information right from the AOC website. What changed after the retreat was the dates of meetings and potentially the frequency of meetings. Since then, a new committee, the Local Government Advisory Committee, which really falls under HHS, the Health and Human Services, is being reconstituted. So Commissioner Fye has been the member of the board who has been willing to make sure HHS gets covered. And so I haven't seen any scheduling for that new advisory committee, but I wanted to make sure the board had full information on that. Were there any other questions or thoughts on the AOC setup? AOC does look forward to our continued active participation in steering committees. For the board and committee assignments, it's the same information where we landed with previous roundtables, with, however, a change needed for board representation on the board of directors for the West Side Economic Alliance. I've not been able to attend the meetings in August. Vice Chair Willie covered those. And I think there's also going to be a meeting while I'm away for the World Water Congress as well. So I wanted to check in with all of us to see how you want to proceed in having a board selection for that appointment. It's generally just attending one board meeting on Thursday mornings once a month Thursdays or Wednesdays, sorry, Wednesday mornings from 7:30 to 9. They are already hybrid. They've changed from being solely virtual. And then you're not required to attend any of the subcommittees, and then it's always nice if you can go occasionally to one of the breakfast forums, just as we're all invited to as Washington County as a full member.
I'll speak up. I've only got a couple of years left. I wouldn't mind doing that one because I've been a bit, on
Great.
business activities. I know Jerry's logical because he's been on their board before. I know he's on a couple of others like GPI and as well as COPAC, but I would be happy to do that.
That's music to my ears.
I think it's great. And I'd just like to say that I'm uncomfortable doing it because of my former role there. So I think it'd be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You guys agree? That'd be tough.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
The only other committee that I would be happy to cover for you, you made a note about having, I did it for several years, so I was hoping somebody else would do it, and he did, is the audit committee. I'm curious what they're going to do on GASB pronouncements in regard to leases. So I'd be happy in your absence to attend that, unless somebody else wants to go talk about those technical issues. And,
well, I know I can't attend the committee meeting on the 7th.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
That's great. But in addition, I thought I flagged that I want my tenure on the audit committee to end. I think it's a great committee for providing further visibility and knowledge into our, not just financial compliance, but how we have eyes on our budget and the way that our county and all of its component parts, as well as clean water services, goes through all of that. So I wanted to set the stage for, we need a change of assignment no later than 2023 as well. So I just thank you for handling it.
I'm happy to do that. Again, I know the players, I know the firms, I know who's doing it. I looked at their agenda already, and
Terrific.
I can handle it Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess.
Great, great. Terrific. Well, that was easy.
Are we, who updates this document? There's a couple minor edits.
Send any corrections for things over to me.
Okay.
I apologize in advance for getting those wrong. So,
She's on the tolling committee, but she's not on it.
well, that's something new.
No, that's right,
Yes,
but that's a
that's
change.
right.
That's a change, the update, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I said I'm also on the homeless committee.
Oh, I was just saying,
Yeah.
that I noticed that
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
on the tolling.
You're right.
committee, but not-
In addition, yeah.
This hadn't been
Yeah.
updated, yeah.
You're on the homeless committee. That's me.
Oh, it says you?
Yeah, yeah, but I know it's you, but it's under.
And you're the
Well,
alternate for impact, which I was
Ye-
confused about too, so.
Right.
It's listed here. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that one I got.
that's correct. Yeah.
So it's a homeless plan advisory committee
Yeah,
that I got wrong.
Yeah.
Yep,
And then the latest new.
Yep.
TV Highway and steering.
yeah. The project advisory committees, I tend to not put in here.
Right.
On road projects, because it gets to be a lot. But if it's not one of ours, if it's done by convening, like Metro or ODOT, we do try to reflect it in here. So if you can help me remember that, that'll be great. So terrific. I just try to be the person on the board that documents this stuff for continuity
Yeah.
as we go through our organizing processes throughout the course of time.
Yeah.
So
I'm
any mistakes are mine.
gonna keep attending the HHS meeting for AOC. And Brenda and I are entertaining the idea of just popping in on their transportation committee. So we'll to be continued on that one for commitments, but for now,
Yeah.
the HHS.
Yep. Terrific. And I didn't update my document from our prior conversation about that. So, because I think economic development has now moved to governance and revenue steering committee as well. So there may be some changes that go on there. This information on their website hadn't been adjusted from the legislative retreat yet, so I'll double check that too. Anything else for this section? So how about a 1-hour lunch break? And then we'll reconvene. Is 1:05 okay for our exec session? Great. And to make things easier, could we have a motion to adjourn to exec session at time certain of 1:05?
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Treese, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. So we'll see you at 1:05. Do you want to do that in person or do you want to, Board Clerk, sorry, I should ask.
Yes, Madam Chair, we will reconvene just in this room and we won't be, everyone will be just in here person, so we won't use Zoom at all. It'll just be completely in person.
Okay,
Could I ask a question? Kevin, do our attendees see the meeting as well as hear it?
Yes, so
Okay,
they can
so that's
see
a
everything that's on the screen. That is what they're seeing.
Great. Just curious. Thank you.
Just like they did before. The only change really is for us.
Were they seeing it last time too?
Yeah,
Mhm.
they could see the presentations, but then they saw each of us.
Okay.
So
We're like
now
the little
we're all
squares like
just
Diane.
one room.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just curious.
But if, let's say, if there's a need for one of you to attend hybrid, there would be another box up there with you and then,
Just be like this.
yeah,
Yes.
just like that.
Can I make a quick comment about this setup? It is far superior. The first time we did this, Catherine sat about right where
He and I
Jerry's arm,
squeezed on this.
and I was sitting there, and everybody was here, and then the staff, were this, I don't know who came up with it, but it's excellent.
Well, I think, yeah, and I think the chair deserves credit,
Well, that's
walking us through
excellent.
to kind of the experience that she had shared from you and other board members.
Yep, we tried to make the most of the assets that we already have, so, and the team's been really great. Now, when we started in 2019 together, there weren't very many moving tables back then. And the staff was still in the process, remember, of opening up the other side. And so acquiring all the furniture. So that's why we have more accessible furniture as
Remember,
well.
we had one TV and it was over here and you and I couldn't see it. And
Yeah, exactly.
it was horrible.
Yep, yep. So thank you very much to all of the team members for helping us continue to improve our practices for the benefit of the board, the employees, and our community. It's really been wonderful. Thank you. All righty, well, everyone enjoy your lunch. We'll see you later then. Thank you.